Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Talking TV with my mum, the weekly Geek-Dom review Roundup podcast where we chat about various geek/genre TV shows and give our opinions, have a bit of discussion and do a review of particular episodes. Now this week we will be discussing the finale of Fear the Walking Dead. We will also be discussing this week's episode of American Horror Story and also the finale, the last ever episode of Preacher. Shorter in terms of what we're talking about, but bigger in terms of the content. So thank you very much for joining us. If this is your first time here, then please consider subscribing to the channel. That would be fantastic. We'd love to have you as part of this Geek-Dom, this kingdom of geeks that I'm building here. So please do that. And also leave us a like if you enjoyed today's podcast. Hit that thumbs up button. That would be greatly appreciated. And also comments. Please leave us your comments down below. We love hearing from you and we love to get engagement from the people listening to this, and we always respond, and you never know, you might get shouted out and your comments might be mentioned on the podcast. So there's an extra incentive. Also, check out my description box for the links to my Twitter, so you can come and follow me on there. And also you'll find links there to my 2 donation mediums, should you feel generous enough to help to contribute towards the growth of this channel and the podcast, help me to get new equipment and things like that. That would be greatly appreciated. You're not under any obligation to do so, but if you did, that would be fantastic. That's pretty much all the housekeeping for now, so I'm going to go ahead and welcome my co-host. So hello there, Mum, are you there?
Hello, Geek-Dom. Yes, I'm here.
Good.
How are you?
Yes, it's almost like you forgot my name there for a minute. You were like, Geek-Dom.
This is geek-mom speaking.
Yes, more calling Orson. Come in, Orson.
Nano.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
So you doing well, yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Good.
Enjoyed the programs this week.
Yes, good. And you enjoyed last week's show, last week's podcast?
Yeah, brilliant.
Excellent.
As always.
Good.
It was an epic proportion, but it was worth it.
Yep, it was a marathon, but you know, it seems to have gone down okay. We haven't had as many numbers as we have in the past, but that could be down to a number of reasons. For example, I mean, I know some of our sort of regular viewers/listeners haven't quite been able to tune in prior to us doing this recording, so those numbers might still go up a little bit. But yeah, you know, it's done okay considering for the length that it was. I'm going to get underway and get into a few things. So the first thing, I'm going to do the news first because there's not really much of that at all. So in terms of TV shows, I don't really have much to say about that. I mean, I think because certain things are gearing up to be back, they are not releasing as much in the way of information about them now. So I haven't heard anything new about the Arrowverse crossover or anything like that. I did see the trailer for Batwoman and it does look pretty cool. I was quite impressed. I saw the trailer and I was like, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this show. Because they mention Batman in it and everything, like in the trailer and stuff. So whether that's just been done for the trailer or whether the sort of narration voiceover thing that was in the trailer happens during the show as well, I don't know. But yeah, that was pretty cool.
Have to wait and see.
We will, and we won't have to wait very long because that all starts next week.
Yes.
So yes, next week kicks off the gradual sort of staggered return of all the Arrowverse shows minus Legends of Tomorrow, which doesn't start until January. But yeah, it's going to be good. Very exciting stuff on the horizon, I think.
Yep.
But yeah, so not really much in the way of TV news. The bits of news I do have is it's geek related, but it's film related, which is the fact that the Ghostbusters movie that's in development, they've now had confirmation that obviously Dan Aykroyd is involved and Ernie Hudson, who played Winston, he's back on board. They haven't confirmed Bill Murray yet, but hopefully that's going to happen. And then it would be great if you then saw, like, you know, the other cast members like Sigourney Weaver, Rick Moranis, people like that all coming back.
That'd be awesome.
Have a full-on Ghostbusters reunion.
Proper Ghostbusters film.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. But the fact that they've got two of the original cast have been officially confirmed to be back for this movie is pretty cool. So we can hope that the rest goes in another way. So yeah. The other thing in relation to obviously the other week I mentioned about the Jurassic Park movie, there's now been talk that the two kids, the kids that were Richard Attenborough's grandchildren from the original.
Okay, yeah.
There's been talk that they may be involved in this new movie as well.
Oh, wow.
So that would be, again, a proper like reunion of sorts of the original cast members, apart from obviously Richard Attenborough, because he's no longer with us. But
They should have his brother instead.
get David Attenborough in, yes. They could do it as like a nature documentary.
That'd sell the movie. Yeah, they're the dinosaurs. He's done stuff about dinosaurs, hasn't he?
Yeah.
That'd be hilarious.
But yeah, so that's that. And then the big news that came out typically, again, a couple of days after we'd recorded the podcast. So
okay.
Marvel/Disney and Sony have made friends, and Spider-Man is back in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that is fantastic news that Spider-Man is back where he belongs. Now, it may only be for a limited time, though, because so far they've said the deal they've reached means that there will be a third Spider-Man movie that will be connected to everything else that's come before. And Tom Holland will also be appearing in another Marvel film in some capacity. Beyond that, we don't know whether that's going to be it, whether they're just going, okay, well, let's give the fans something, let's give him a send-off, and then he can go off and do just Sony-only movies, or whether it's a case of, look, okay, let's see how this goes, and then we'll take it from there kind of thing. It could be that as well. But it's great. It's great news because everybody was so disappointed because this, our young British actor, Tom Holland, has done such a great job of Spider-Man, and they've done such a great job of integrating him with all of the other Marvel films. It would have been such a shame. I was optimistic that they would sort something out, and my optimism paid off because, they sorted it. So that's really, really cool. I mean, there has been some other little bits of talk, which seems like there's going to be some kind of link between what Sony are doing with their Spider-Man related films, like Venom and some of the other things they've got in development, that could be sort of tangentially connected to the Marvel movies. So the way that I'm looking at that at the moment is that I don't see it as like a crossover. I don't think like Venom is going to show up in the Avengers, or Captain America is going to reappear and show up in one of these Spider-Man related movies, I don't think it's going to be that kind of link. I think it'll be more, like the Marvel Netflix shows where they mentioned Hulk, they mentioned Captain America, they mentioned Thor. They never actually showed up. They never actually showed anything.
I have a shout out, but them not actually be in it, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be more like that. I think it'll be something like, maybe one of the characters says to Spider-Man what he's been up to, and he'll be like, oh, it's been crazy. I've been dealing with this, that, and the other, which will be things referencing the Sony Spider-Man films, or vice versa. In one of them, there'll be a little mention of, the Avengers or something. It'll just be connective tissue. It won't be full-on crossover. But that's still an interesting thing. Now, I've got a theory here as well. This is just my opinion, so don't at me in the comments and go, you're wrong, Dom, you're wrong. Sony announced that they're doing this movie called Madam Web. Now, that is weird because Madam Web has always been like a secondary character in the Spider-Man comics. She is this weird old woman that is blind, and she's like psychic and things like that. And interestingly enough, because I know they did the animated Into the Spider-Verse, which was about multiple dimensions and realities and stuff, but in the cartoons and in the comics, that's kind of what Madam Web does. She's somehow connected to all the spider people, and her webs are links to different universes, to different realities. So that was kind of how they introduced the concept of there are different Spider-Men, but they are not Peter Parker. They are from other worlds, they are from other versions of Earth and things like that.
Okay.
It's interesting they're doing this live action movie. Now, whether that is them going, we can sort of connect things to Marvel maybe and say, well, it's another reality, or them saying, a bit like what DC are doing with the Arrowverse stuff where they're going, oh, we've got all these multiple Earths. It could be that. It could be them saying this is a way to somehow link the live action films to the Into the Spider-Verse cartoon movie. Now, my theory is the other thing about Madam Web is that she, unlike Spider-Man or whatever, which is, oh, I was exposed to this thing and that's what made me a spider or a spider person. She's a mutant.
Spider. Sorry.
She's
I'm a spider.
She's a mutant. And what I find really
Okay.
interesting about that is the timing. The timing is Sony announced, we're making this Madam Web movie. People go, really? That's bizarre that she's getting a solo movie when she's like a bit part character. But then you go, she's a mutant. Now, so, Marvel have obviously got all the rights now to the X-Men and stuff. And they're talking about, you know, they're going to be introducing the X-Men probably in phase 5, which won't kick off until 2021, 2022. But they're going to be releasing releasing their version of the X-Men into the world, into their cinema universe. What if this deal between Marvel and Sony goes a little bit wider than just the Spider-Man thing? What if they find a way to somehow connect this Madam Web thing and they say she's a mutant, she's all connected to spider people, she's connected to multiple realities, and they use that as some way of integrating the X-Men, who are also mutants, into the Marvel universe via her or something in her film or something like that. I mean, like I said, this is just pure speculation. This is just me, random stream of consciousness off the top of my head. But when I saw that announcement, I was like, that's a weird announcement. And then I was like, oh, mutant, timing, weird timing. You know, I don't know. And then it was like off the back of the Spider-Man is back in the MCU thing and stuff like that. And I just started putting all these pieces together. And, you know, I might be adding things up and coming up with the wrong number. But I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. I just thought it was an interesting idea. I mean, other people in the comments, what do you think? You know, are you invested in these movies? Do you have an opinion on this? Had you heard about this Madam Web film? What do you think of my theory? Is it complete and utter codswallop, or is it, you know, well, it's a possibility, you know? Let me know. I would be interested to hear other people's thoughts on this. And the only other thing is that now this is a real big rumor. There is no confirmed, because my friend Tom mentioned this to me the other week, and then I've since heard more about it, and it comes from one source, and I don't know how reputable that source is, so I don't know how much validity there is to this rumor. But there's been talk that because they're going to be rebooting the idea of the X-Men, and I think that they you know, Kevin Feige, who's Mr. Marvel, he's in charge of all the movies and stuff, he had said, what we're going to be doing with the X-Men is going to be very different to what's gone before. And this rumor's come out to say that there is a rumor. This rumor's come out that there's a rumor. Yay, good. I can English. They are potentially going to be race swapping Professor X and Magneto. And rather than having them be a World War II Holocaust survivor and a privileged white dude that comes from a rich background and stuff, they were potentially going to be making them both black guys.
Oh.
And maybe moving the story forward in time. So rather than it being a Holocaust survivor thing, making it more to do with some more recent trouble and strife in the world. I know a lot of people might get up in arms about that and go, oh, not my Professor X, not my Magneto or whatever. You know, they've always been white in the comics and this, that, and the other. But the Marvel Cinema Universe haven't done things exactly the same as they are in the comics. I mean, for a start, Samuel L. Jackson was cast as Nick Fury. In the comics, Nick Fury was always a white guy. You know, I mean, for God's sake, Nick Fury was played by David Hasselhoff a long time ago when they did this odd one-off movie. That was David Hasselhoff, you know, and then you jump forward to the modern era and they race swapped Nick Fury and made him into a black dude. And Samuel L. Jackson is absolutely amazing. And everybody went on to accept him to the point where he actually they then made Nick Fury in the comics a black guy. So they sort of changed things that way. And they're going through a bit of a revolution with the X-Men comics at the moment. They're kind of rebooting everything. They're changing things and stuff like that. So it could all be connected to them saying, you know, blank slate, new start. Don't expect the X-Men to be what they were like before. This is a new beginning. So why not? You know, why not? And like I heard a very interesting thing. Here we go. Here's my one per podcast. So after listening to the most recent Kevin Smith Fat Man Beyond podcast, shout out to Kevin Smith if you ever listen to this. Oh yeah, I got a little story to tell about that in a second. Anyway, they were talking on their podcast about it, and Mark Bernardin, who's his co-host, he actually mentioned this whole thing with the Holocaust survivor thing with Magneto and stuff was actually like a retcon thing anyway. That was never part of the original story when Stan Lee and stuff were involved in the origins of the X-Men. There was never a thing that he was a concentration camp kid whose powers developed while he was in under the capture of the Nazis. That was added in the 80s. So that goes to show, the comics can change. They can change people's backgrounds. They can change things. Just because we've been used to it being a certain thing for so long doesn't mean that there's not room for it to change in the future, for them to tell a different story. And then they said what they said on the podcast. They said that there's always been a thing in the comics anyway, even though it was never written specifically, but there's always been a thing really that Professor X and Magneto are Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. They are two guys that are campaigning for civil rights for an oppressed group, but they're both doing it in very different ways. One is doing it by, let's do this the right way and show the world that we're not to be feared and we should be given the same rights. The other one is saying, we are going to take those rights by any means necessary. So there's always been that analogy with these two real life civil rights leaders. So why not? Why not get... And again, I thought this was genius when they said this on the Fat Man Beyond podcast, but get Idris Elba as Professor X. So you've got a strong black British actor. And then get Denzel Washington to play Magneto.
Oh, wow.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. That'd be a great casting.
I would be totally on board with that. That would be really good. And it'd just be interesting. It'd be interesting for them to say, you've seen all these years of two different iterations of the X-Men under the watch of Fox. Fox did the original ones, which had Patrick Stewart as Professor X and Sir Ian McKellen as Magneto. Then you jump forward and you have Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy playing those same two characters, but as younger men. So we've had two different versions played by four different actors. Why not wipe the slate and do something completely different?
Yeah.
Why not? And again, this might trigger people. I might get comments now where people are like, no, you're wrong, and all this kind of stuff. But, at the end of the day, it's my opinion. It's my opinion. Yeah. You're entitled to your opinion. But like I said, just look at the facts. Look at the fact that Marvel in the movies are not doing everything the way that they did it in the comics. I mean, for God's sake, you just got to look at Spider-Man and say, in the Spider-Man comics, Mary Jane has always been a redhead, high school cheerleader type, girl next door thing. And then along come these new Spider-Man movies and they cast Zendaya, who is a mixed race actress. And although she's not specifically Mary Jane, her nickname is MJ. So they basically made her the new MJ character. And they've gone, yeah, she's a black girl, And yeah, there was a little bit of a flutter about that amongst purists that were like, oh, she's not MJ as we expect her to be, but generally speaking, she's gone on to be, the fan base has accepted that.
Yeah.
And like I said, we all accepted Nick Fury as being a black dude now, so why not?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So there you go.
I'm interested to see what they say.
That was a big thing. That was a news thing that went into a soapbox thing. But our listeners, our viewers, they're invested in all this culture, so I think to them, it's going to be an interesting thing. Tangentially related to Kevin Smith, so I did actually mention this to you previously, but I had like a real fluttery moment yesterday. Well, I say yesterday, you're listening to this on Sunday. On Wednesday night, I had a fluttery moment. So AEW, which is the new wrestling company, and anybody that knows me personally and stuff will know, not only am I a geek in terms of these movies and TV shows and stuff, but I'm also a big wrestling fan. This new promotion has kicked off. They had their first televised show on Wednesday night. It was very exciting, very, very good. If you're interested in wrestling, go and check it out. It's worth a look. Not saying replace WWE, but look, you can watch it alongside. You can watch both. You don't have to pick a side. But they had a thing where they'd sort of said, oh, Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes are going to be in attendance. And I was chatting to another guy on Twitter and I sort of said, oh, I've heard this. This is really awesome. Jay and Silent Bob are going to be at AEW. And I added them in the tweet. So I put at that Kevin Smith and at J Muse. So it would have shown up as a mention. But, I just put it in there as it was. I wasn't thinking anything of it. Later that night, I get Jason Mewes has liked your tweet. And I'm like, oh my God, like he's an actual film star. He's a comedic film star and he liked my comment. Now, I know it's not the same as like, oh, well, people might go, yeah, but he didn't send you a comment back or he didn't send you a message or whatever. It's like, no, he didn't. But the fact that he noticed my tweet and he liked it was, for me, that was a pretty cool thing. And so then I'm like, oh, hopefully now maybe Kevin Smith will notice as well. So then I sent another tweet off the back of that saying, I can't believe that Jason Mewes just liked this tweet. This is amazing. I'm really excited, blah, 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 blah. All I need now is at that Kevin Smith to do the same, and then maybe he'll come and check out the little podcast that I do with my mum, and where I name drop him nearly every other week. So you never know, stranger things have happened. Maybe at some point in the future we'll be going, guess what, guys, we got another special guest this week, Kevin Smith. Cool. Can you imagine that, a live link up with Kevin Smith in Los Angeles or whatever on the podcast? Wow, you can but dream.
Wow. Yeah, indeed.
But anyway, that's enough of me flapping about stuff. Let's get back to the people. So we have some comments. So I'm just going to go through the comments that we got from last week's podcast. So firstly, a new comment from a new person. Now I'm kind of tangentially aware of this girl. She's got quite a big subscriber base and stuff. So when I saw she listened to our podcast, I was like, oh wow, how did you find your way here? But yeah, it's a lady called Bethany Mayer, who, simple to the point, but she put awesome podcast, clap 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 emoji. Thank you very much. Wow. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So Zoe, Queen Zonia, our friend from the Philippines, who loves you. So she started out with, I'm not going to say the word she said, but she used the F word. She went, F. I love the two topics. I don't know about the last one, as in Preacher. I stopped watching The Walking Dead since season 4 onwards because it became pretty much boring to me, and I learned the two major deaths, and I want to watch it again. Then the last season kind of killed it for me again, but I'm always giving them another chance. It's like that thing, isn't it? Sometimes you watch a show and you go, oh, I feel a bit deflated, blah, 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 not happy about this, not happy about that. But then it comes back on and you go, oh, this program's back on again. Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
American Horror Story. I love every single bit of it, especially when Lady Gaga was cast. Not only that, but they gave her the best killer there is. This season, I really hope they're going with the season 1 vibes and not the later ones. There's nothing wrong with the latter ones, but I loved the first season. This is just my opinion. It may be right or wrong. This is what I know. I love your videos and these topics. I can't wait to binge everything again.
Yay!
So I was like, yeah, thank you. So I replied to that and I said, I'd highly recommend Preacher. It's so insane and fun. I agree that it did go off in a weird way after killing off most of the original cast, but generally it's done okay moving forward with the new people. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with this show. Sometimes the episodes are great and other times they bore me. American Horror Story is great, and yeah, Gaga was good in Hotel. This one is different again, but ties into lots of 80s slasher movie vibes. So far, it's so good. And these are strong opinions, my friend. Glad you shared them. Thank you very much. And she said, the only reason they are like that is because since I was hooked up with original horrors, I tend to try and compare what I feel in this era of horrors. So she looks at the old school horror stuff and then looks at the current stuff and goes, how does it compare, sort of thing. A bit like you do.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I know I might attract a debate, but I don't like unnecessary jump scares and unexplained deaths in horror or any gore. Like, she doesn't like gore for the sake of gore. I'm hard to please with horror nowadays. So I apologize to all the people who actually like them. I'll try and watch Preacher. It's the first I'm hearing of it. And then she said, P.S., and this was all in capitals with a couple of heart emojis. I love you, Geek-Mom.
Oh, thank you.
Another new friend, Mangled Nerdy, who is a friend of Melly Playful, who has come to the podcast, and she said, I love this podcast, my friend. Smiley face, thumbs up emoji. So that was nice.
Hey.
Los from Big Retro Show. Another great podcast, Dom and Mama. I haven't caught up on Fear the Walking Dead, so this was a bit of a spoiler for me, but all good. I probably won't be returning. I got put off by them trying to build a helicopter, and I stopped watching. It's pretty damn cool the way that you guys have set up this podcast and even include the commentary from everyone who listens. Cheers.
Oh, cool.
So I said, thank you so much, Los. Well, at least you get a sense of what's going on via us then. So even if he doesn't watch the show anymore, he can keep up via our podcast.
I don't need to watch it. Just listen to us.
Thank you for saying so. And we really enjoy being able to engage with people through the comments. Haha. And cheers to you, my friend.
Cool. Yeah, we do, though. It's
good. And then we've got the big one. So we have the big one from our buddy Will from 2-Bit Gaming.
Yeah.
So Will comes in with... In relation to us obviously having our issues and not being able to record together and stuff the other week, he said, every video me and Josh record together, there's always mic issues. It's a pain in the butt, so we feel your pain. We really do. It's a nightmare. One day we'll nail it. So he could relate with the issues we had.
Yeah.
He said, ooh, I hated Smallville. Too clean cut and happy clappy for me. You know, I always listen to the whole podcast, but I've not been watching a lot of TV recently. Just so much going on in real life and our channel, etc., etc. It's been busy to say the least. You got me through the worst part of the day today. Lots of spoilers for Fear. I'll forget, though, by the time I catch up on it, so don't you worry about me. You know I'm an idiot. Love to you both.
Oh, bless. Love to you, Will.
And I said that I was glad he could relate. It was irritating, but it would have been cool to record in the same room for a change. And I said I was never really a big fan of Smallville but myself, but having the tie into the crossover is cool. And to be fair, as I've heard it said a lot, is that in a lot of ways, we may not have the Arrowverse as we know it if it hadn't been for Smallville being the first successful superhero TV show that was able to expand into bringing in all these heroes. So in a lot of ways, it laid the groundwork for what the Arrowverse has gone on to do. So like it or not, you know, I think it does have its place in what it's done for this kind of genre of TV shows.
Yeah.
I'm glad we were able to get you through the day. You're a fair bit behind, so you probably will. And then I asked him what his thoughts were on American Horror Story. And he said, well, I watched season 1 when it first came out. Then I got into other things like Walking Dead, etc. And I never looked back. People talk about it a lot, and it's right up my street. So why I haven't watched it, I'm not quite sure. I may have to start from scratch. What is your favorite season? People say Cult is a good one. I like this whole slasher idea, though. Now, you tell me if you agree with this, Mum. Now, this is what I said to him, my recommendation. I said, I defo recommend watching, as it's generally a good show. Each season has a different story and setting, but there are little nods or links to past seasons. Cult was pretty good. Asylum is very good, as is Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed Coven too. The last one, Apocalypse, was all right, but ropey at points. I quite enjoyed the Carnival one too. Creepy circus people and a horrible clown. So far, the 80s slasher movie theme of this is cool. What do you think in terms of what I suggested and what I said was good or whatever in terms of all the different seasons they've had of American Horror Story?
Yeah. No, the ones you said, that's what I would have said.
Yeah.
So Hotel, I mean, Hotel was one of I loved Hotel.
Yeah.
A lot of people poo-pooed it, but I thought it was really good. And yeah, the Carnival, the Freak Show one was really good as well.
And I know
the Asylum was scary,
we both really enjoyed the
scary.
Asylum one. Yeah.
So yeah, it's good. It's good. You take it for what it is each time, and it's, you know, like you say, we had an odd one that wasn't quite great, but can't stop watching it anyway.
Exactly. So he said he's going to take
this one, yeah.
He's going to take the plunge with it. So hopefully he'll get stuck in and he'll...
Which, like you said, he's never watched these things because he never watched Disney and he used to live in a cupboard.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm not surprised. Sorry, Will.
It's funny as well. It's good that we've done that comment there, is because Zoe, she didn't leave an actual comment, but she did actually say to me, because again, she had the thing where she had it on at the computer at work, so she wasn't able to comment. But she said the same thing. Off the back of us talking about American Horror Story last week, it's really piqued her interest now. So she's actually going to go and start watching it herself. because she said, I don't know why I haven't watched it. It sounds right up my street. And off the back of you two talking about it, I'm going to go and watch it now. So that's somebody else that we got into watching it. So that was cool. So again, she enjoyed our review enough that she wanted to go and watch the series. Now,
Brilliant.
A little thing I want to do for Will right now as well is I want to give him him and Josh a bit of a shout out and a bit of props. Now, all of this month, throughout the whole of October, they've decided to do a campaign thing on Twitter. And I think it's fantastic. So they are promoting body positivity throughout the whole of October, because there is so much stuff out there in the world these days in terms of trying to make people feel bad about their appearance, whether it's their weight, their looks, their height, bald head, graying hair, no hair, whatever it is. There's so much stuff out there, and there's always been a lot of focus on how it affects women, about how women are made to feel they have to look a certain way, they have to be a certain way or whatever. But it does also affect men. Men also have this issue with their appearance, and they get hurt by things people say about how they look and stuff as well. So they decided, we're going to do something about this, and we're going to try and spread a positive message on social media. So they asked a load of us in our community, would you be on board with doing this thing? And what they wanted to do was like a calendar almost. Every day on Twitter, they would put up either a photograph or a picture of a different creator who is basically trying to champion body positivity and saying, look, this is me, but I like who I am, and I come in this shape. And then someone else would be like, I come in this shape. I mean, Will started it off. He put a video up, and it ended with him whipping his top off and sort of going, look, I'm a skinny boy. And for a long time, it always bothered me and stuff being skinny, and, never been able to put weight on, and people sort of, making jokes about the fact that I was so skinny and stuff like that. But he's coming to accept who he is, and being comfortable in his own skin. And then you flip forward to the one that's on that's on at the moment, or the time we're recording anyway, which is a guy called Vaguely Sane, and he's a big lad. And he's going, I'm a big lad. I got bullied for it as a kid, but instead of making me go into my shell, it made me just embrace to say, well, yeah, I'm a big lad. That's who I am. And he's saying, this is me. This is who I am. So it's a really good thing, because it's championing people saying, be happy with who you are, and don't worry about how the world tries to, depict you or say you should look, or put pressure on you to be this way or that way or the other. Be comfortable in your own skin. And I think that's a really positive thing they're doing. And what they're doing in exchange for that, they're also saying, and on the day, each creator that they focus on, they will also promote their channel, promote their videos throughout the whole day, throughout the whole sort of 24 hours. They will go, here's this video, go and check this out. Here's this thing, go and check this out. Whilst encapsulating it in this bubble of, but the only reason we're doing it is based around this cause to try and highlight, body positivity and stuff like that. So yeah, props to you guys for doing that. It's great.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And I am going to be involved in it, and I've got something.
Oh yes.
Yeah, you know me. I don't do things by halves. So I've got something very, very
Oh dear. Oh
up my
dear.
sleeve.
Oh dear. Beware, everybody.
Yes.
Beware. Hide behind your cushions.
Watch out for jiggling parts.
Oh dear, no. I can't not unthink that now.
What are you I was on about my belly. What are you talking about? How dare you?
Yeah. There's no nipple piercings I was worried about.
Yeah, so
the tassels.
So if you haven't checked out 2-Bit Gaming, go and check them out, and also go and check them out on Twitter and stuff, and see what they're doing and what they're getting. They've roped all of us into doing. It was so funny as well when Will kicked this off, and everybody just was winding him up and bombarding him and saying, this is just you trying a clever way just to get nude pictures of everybody, isn't it, Will? That's what you're after, really. So he got ribbed a lot, but everybody chipped in, and I think now they may be down. They may still be needing 2 people to round out the month, but they've got, I think, like 29 out of the 31 days of October are covered by a different person every day. So I think that's a pretty impressive feat.
Yeah, brilliant.
So yeah, it's really, really cool.
So anyone that hasn't signed up, get signed up for the last to make sure he has one for every day.
Yeah, exactly, because it's a really good cause that they're doing it for. It's for it is for a laugh and stuff, and it is good you get that promotion as a creator, but at the same time, it's championing something worthwhile that a lot of people have to deal with, which is feeling uncomfortable in who they are as a person and stuff like that. So if somebody putting up their story can make a difference to one person, then that's a good start. So yes,
that's true.
Right. So the final thing is from our buddy Skippy, who unfortunately he wasn't able to get a comment. Yeah, he wasn't able to get a comment in on the podcast per se, but he did send me something because he said, "I'm so sorry, things have just been snowing me under." Because he's been away from home with work and things, and then obviously he's got a baby, so he's just been so behind. And bless him, he keeps sending out all these apologies to all these different people in the YouTube community saying, "I'm going to get to your video soon. I'm really behind. I'm so sorry," and all of this. So he's just like apologizing left, right, and center. Bless him, but he's doing his best. But he did send us a question. Now, in keeping with the fact that
from the pouch,
yes, a question from Skippy's pouch. In keeping with the fact that we are in Spooktober, we are in the month of Halloween. He has sent us a spooky related question.
Okay.
And he has said, "What is your favorite ghost movie?" And I mean ghost movies only. So not any other kind of horror films, ghost movies. Do you have a thought on that? Ghosts, things with ghosts.
Wow.
I mean, I think
can't think of anything.
I think I'd have to kick off by saying we can't, I think we would both lose points in credibility if we didn't mention Ghostbusters, of course. I mean, who doesn't love Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
Ghostbusters is a great ghost movie. For me, though, it's a tough one because I was thinking about like things that are specifically ghosts. Poltergeist is great. Poltergeist obviously is ghost, isn't it? So
that film that came out last year, I think it was, with Martin Freeman in, which I can't remember the name of it now. That was very weird, but that was ghost.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I can't remember what it is now.
Because I'd seen it advertised at the cinema, and then I couldn't get hold of it. And eventually, I got hold of a copy of it, and I went, "This was so weird."
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, there's that.
Oh, it was called Ghost Stories, wasn't it?
Oh, it was Ghost Stories. Yes, it was. Yes, you're right. It was Ghost Stories.
There you go. It's called Ghost Stories. Yeah, that's right. Because there had been another one that was also advertised at the same time, which was about a house which had Helen Mirren in, but that wasn't really very good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was a ghost story too, but that wasn't very good. But the one with Martin Freeman in was really good, and a right twist at the end as well. So yeah, I can't pick a horror-y, ghosty story out of the hat. I'll probably think of loads afterwards. If I do, I'll message him and let him know.
Yeah. I mean, there's things obviously like it's ghost, but it's also kind of comical and stuff, which is The Frighteners, which had Michael J. Fox in. That was like 90s. Casper, obviously Casper. Casper the Friendly Ghost. That film is terrifying. I don't know. It's hard.
Scary.
You look at things and there's ghosts in them. So, I mean, I've never really been a fan of the like Paranormal Activities movies and things like that. They're a little bit too meh for me.
Freaky.
They're not too frightening. I think though, like I said, Poltergeist I think is a good pick with the they're here and the weird little old lady and then obviously later on you got the strange reverend guy that was really creepy. But then again, that also introduces like otherworldly beings like demons and stuff. Yeah. It's not strictly ghosts. Ghosts. I mean, I would say I liked The Woman in Black.
Oh, yes.
With Daniel Radcliffe in.
Yeah, that's a ghost story, wasn't it?
Yeah, I like that. And it's just a straight up ghost story.
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty good one.
That's probably up there as well, yeah.
It's very much like the old Hammer horror movies in the way that it's played out, and you never really get to see much of a lot of it's implied. It's never like, oh, and here's a CGI ghost floating around and stuff like that. Because
they had that one. What was that other one you watched? The House on the Hill or something?
Oh, The House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah.
Was it that one?
That was a ghost. Yeah, the one you and Rachel watched for a while.
Oh no, the TV show, The Haunting of Hill House. Yeah. That was the next.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that was a TV show though. He's on about movies.
Oh, film. Yeah. Okay.
So, but
yeah, I think that one with Martin Freeman is good, and the like I say, The Woman in Black.
Yeah. And Ghostbusters.
And Casper.
And Casper, yeah.
There you go, Skippy.
There you go, Skippy. Hopefully we covered all bases there.
Let us know which one was your favourite ghost story for film.
Yes, let us know. Let us know in
Back
the comments.
Back at you, mate.
So there we go. So that is all of our comments for this week. Thank you very much, everybody, and look forward to the comments in the next one. Now,
I thought you were going to say thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye.
Yeah, that's it. We're out of here. Oh dear. Oh, quick little thing that I found out, and I thought I got to tell Mum this. This is really interesting. So I don't know if I mentioned it to you. I might have mentioned it to you in passing or something. But there's this new horror game out at the moment called The Man of Medan, which is one of
I think you did mention something.
And it's a horror game where it's like the choices you make dictate the outcome. I've now
like Goosebumps.
Yeah, yeah, like Goosebumps. I've started watching my third playthrough of this game. So I watched Jesse, your local anti-hero, play it. I watched Katie, Take Your Time Gaming, play it. And now I'm watching Serial Pillock play it at the moment. And what's great about it is because the game changes so far, although there have been some bits that are the same, there's lots of different things that I'm watching one and I'm going, cool. I didn't see that bit in the last playthrough I watched. And, you know, like when I watched Serial Pillocks the other day, his beginning started out with like soldiers in China and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait, I don't remember seeing this bit before. So it's cool that there's all different stuff. But the relevance of that to this podcast is there's a guy in it that acts a bit like he's like the crypt keeper from Tales from the Crypt and things like that. He's a narrator. Yeah. He's called the curator. And in between parts of the game, you go back to him and he's sat in a library and he talks to you directly as the player about what you're doing and what's happening in the game, what's happened so far and stuff. You'll never guess who it is that does the voice for him.
Who?
Only Pip Torrens, a.k.a. her star from Preacher.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Because I was watching, it was when I was watching one of the playthroughs and I kept going, there's something about this guy's voice that's so familiar. Why does it resonate with me? Why am I recognizing it? But I couldn't quite place it because he's doing it very British. There's no German sort of sound in there or anything like that. But I was like, there's something about it that's really familiar. So I looked up, I was like, Man of Medan cast list. And I'm going through and I'm like, oh yeah, Sean Ashmore is this character and blah, blah, blah. Sean Ashmore, you know, the guy that was in The Following with Kevin Bacon.
Oh, yes.
The young guy, you know, the young cop that joined him. He's one of the characters in it and stuff. So I'm going through and I'm like, this person. And then I went, Pip Torrens. Pip Torrens. That name is so familiar. And then I went, Preacher. Oh my God, it's her star from Preacher.
It's the All Father.
Yes, it's the All Father. It's so funny. I was just like, that's so cool. I have to tell Mum.
Wow. I'm gonna have to try and check this game out then. That sounds good.
It's really good. It's very, very intriguing. And like I said, it's so cool that, you know, I'm on my third watch of it now on a different channel and the game is playing out differently. Again. You know, it's like, it's not just watching the same game over and over and over. It's like each time I've watched it, there's been different things. So it's really, really cool.
I'll check it out.
So yes, and it's good. And it's like they seem to be going for a kind of anthology series, you know, a Tales of the Unexpected, Twilight Zone type vibe where this is all under this banner because it's called The Dark Pictures. So it's like The Dark Pictures presents Man of Medan. And then at the very end of this game, you get a little trailer for their next game, which comes out, I think it's either next year or the following year, which is a different story altogether, but it's The Dark Pictures Presents, and it's called something else. And this one the second one looks like it's set in it's very creepy looking. It's like a small, rural, backwards, like American town where weird things go on and there's lots of murders and things like that. And it's like, oh, that one looks really good as well. Can't wait till that one comes out. Wow. So it looks like they're building this kind of anthology, which is
they're really PlayStation games, are they?
Yeah. Well, no, it's actually multi-format. It's on Xbox, PlayStation and PC.
Oh, I'll do it then.
Yeah, you could look into getting it. And do you know what, Mum? Do you know what's interesting about you saying about possibly getting it for PC? Well, if you were to decide to make a purchase, I now have an affiliate link for Green Man Gaming. So Green Man Gaming are now like kind of sponsoring me, I suppose, in a way. I mean, it's not a full-on sponsorship, but it's an affiliation, which is where if you go to their site through the link that I'll have down in the description box, it will take you to their store, and they sell digital video games for PC, VR, and Nintendo Switch. They're a company that's been around for 10 years, so they're reputable. They've won tons of awards, and they specialize in digital game purchases.
Right.
If you're ever interested in looking to purchase something like that for the PC, maybe click on my link, and then that way I'll get a little commission. It won't cost you any extra money, but I'll get a little something off the back of you using my link.
Oh, excellent.
So there we go.
I'll have to look into that as well.
Yeah.
There you go.
So that was a perfect way of segueing into that.
Without even realising
it, exactly. Oh, wow, look at me. I'm such a salesman. Oh, dear. So that's all of the mentions, the shilling, me geeking out about celebrities, plugging my affiliate link, reading your comments and rounding up a bit of news. So now, if you're still with us, hopefully you are, and you found this first segment entertaining. We're gonna, or if you're just joining us because you use the timestamps, welcome. We're now about to talk about the finale of this season of Fear the Walking Dead, End of the Line. So, what did you think? You want to take the lead?
Yeah, I'll take the lead. Right. So, the end of last week, we had Dwight. Dwight had run off from the crowd because they got to the Gulch and it was full of walkers, and he said he's having no part of being in part of this group.
Yep.
And so we started with Dwight walking or running. He was running, I think, through the wherever he was, and he could hear a voice on the walkie.
Yeah.
And it sounded like his wife. Well, it seemed to me that that was his wife.
Yeah.
Talking to him, but they couldn't hear him, and he got really agitated with it, and he threw the walkie-talkie away, thinking, "I'm imagining this because I want it to be here on the other end of the walkie."
Yeah.
And he managed to get back to near the other side of the bridge where the trucks were, but he couldn't get into the truck. And then he heard something, and it was horses. So he thought, "Oh, here we go." So he hid under the truck. I could see the horses, and he stayed there for ages. And then the horses just stopped. I was like, "Okay, what's going on here?" And then when he came back, looked round, they were just horses.
Yeah, with no riders.
Yeah.
But they weren't wild horses. They were all like saddled up and things like that.
Saddled up and everything. My first thought was, because at the end of the last episode, they had said to Ginny, "We need your help." And I thought, oh, she sent them horses to get them from wherever they are, knowing that they got no trucks.
Yeah.
That's what I thought first. That's my first thought. Then they went back to the ranch place, and she was saying she didn't know where he was. She was saying, "Well, where are you then?"
Yeah.
I was thinking, hang on, she doesn't even know where he is, so she couldn't have sent the sort of horses. And he was saying, "We need you to help us clear the walkers."
Yeah.
But obviously that wasn't her plan.
No.
That wasn't part of the plan, was it?
No.
And she was saying about that she wanted to take them all, and they'll be useful in various places, and basically saying to him, "Well, we'll come and help you, but I need your people for what I need them for. So you're not going to be staying together at any point. I want you to do that." And it's like, what decision he has to make.
Yeah, because
does he say yes or not?
What was interesting here was the fact that when they explained exactly where they were, she was like, "Oh, really?" Because she knew of this Humbug's Gulch, and the reason that it was full of walkers was because it was the people that lived there they'd refused their help, they'd refused to join them. And so she said, "Oh, well, look what came of it. They decided not to join us. So you're making the right choice joining us, because then you won't end up like them." And she said, because Morgan obviously wanted to be like, "Come and help us, clear the place out, and we'll stay here." And she's like, no, that place is done for. That place is no good. So we'll come and get you, but then we're going to take you off. And like you said, and they were basically going to portion them out. And Morgan's like, "No, we stay together. We're a family. We've come this far together." And she's like, "Well, I can't make any promises there. We need people to go where they'll be needed and where they'll be useful." And then he was pondering it, and she's there sat listening, like, "What's your answer, Morgan?" And he's looking around at everybody and thinking, we're all going to get divided up. And then he's, what choice do we have, sort of thing. You know, we got to think about survival, and we're going to have to take the deal. So he agreed, and she's like, fantastic, we'll be there, you know, as soon as we can. We'll send people and we'll come and get you. And she's all happy with herself of like, you know, you've got no bargaining chips here. So
no,
you either take it our
but that
way
was
or you don't
interesting,
have
wasn't it? Because obviously I had a theory last week, which I will go on to sort of clarify. Basically, so they had decided that they were waiting for her, and that was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then Dwight turned up with the horses.
Yes.
And then we found out that the horses were part of her people's horses, who had obviously been up to this place where they are now, herding the herd into that place, and they'd got killed obviously at some point, or ran off, or left the horses, or whatever they did. Which meant she lied. Because there was too many people in that town to that be the people from the town.
No,
she'd clearly orchestrated it.
Yeah, no, she had.
Why were her guys with the horses in that area if they hadn't like brought the herd there, if you know what I mean?
So the way all this went down was, like you said, Dwight came back with the horses, and that gave them hope of like, we could do something. And wasn't it John, because he's like a cowboy, he was like, maybe we could do something. Maybe we could clear this place out. And then their idea was to like corral them like cattle, like use the horses to herd the zombies out of the gulch and away
back to her,
so that they could then have it for themselves. And through all of this, they then came to the realization, wait, these horses belong to Ginny's people. And then they discovered that obviously they discovered that it was all a big double cross, that she had left those people there. They were people there, and they obviously refused to join her, so she left them to die. And that's why it was all sealed up, because it's like, almost in a way, it's kind of like a dirty little secret, but it's also that this is what happens when you cross me. And then they come to the realization that like, she's wicked, like if she would do this to people. So they decided, right, change of plan, they're coming, but we want to get a leverage here. We want to try and get things to, you know, to go our way. So they had what did they have? Was the starter or something for the armored truck or something like that, the SWAT truck. And so they said, what we're going to do is we're going to lead the walkers away as we planned. So we're going to clear the place out, so then that way we can make it habitable. But we're going to keep those walkers. And then what we're going to do is, because we realize that Ginny is dangerous now and we need to do something, we're going to unleash those walkers on her people.
On her.
And the hope will be that it will either take them out or it will scare them off enough that they'll go away, leave them alone. They can all live in the gulch. Everybody goes home happy. And they can't take the SWAT truck because they've got the starter for it. So this was the plan. So some of them stay behind. While
they sent Strand and Daniel to keep an eye out for them arriving.
Yeah, and then you got some stayed in the gulch, like after they got the zombies out, to sort of tidy it up and try and make it more secure and stuff like that. And then you had, right, so let's try and remember who it was now. So you had Morgan and Grace. You had Dwight, June and John, and that was it, wasn't it? And they were all on horses. And they were herding, and it was so funny because like John was doing it like you would herd animals. He was like going circling around them and like whistling and like going, "Hoo-wee, come on now," and all this lot. Like a real cowboy, like corralling them away. And they were leading them up the road and stuff. And then, you know, Strand and Daniel were with them to a point, and then they were like, right, this is a good point for you to take lookout. So they broke off. And then some of the zombies tried following them. So John was like, hey, quick, corral them back together. We can't have them following them too. So then they got them, and then they took them further and further away and kept them in an area, like an open area, but out of sight, so that they could then use them when the time came, when they got a signal from Strand and Daniel.
Yes. So Strand and Daniel, Strand was a bit conflicted about all of it and thinking maybe they should go with her. And Daniel's trying to talk him out of it and say, no, she's bad news. This is not what we want to do. And then they spotted her arriving, didn't they?
Yeah.
And that was fine. And then obviously they filled up all the stuff, all their cars, lorry and the big truck. And then that was the signal. And then they gave them the signal first, didn't they? Then they realised Luciano's with them.
Yes.
So they go, can't do it. We can't risk Luciano.
Yeah.
So they had to get hold of Morgan's lot again and say, look, no, abort. You can't do this because Luciano. And it got a bit out of control, didn't it, at their end? But what I was worried about is Strand at the time, because obviously he was a bit conflicted.
Yeah.
And he goes, don't worry, I'll go and sort it out. So he started walking towards the trucks. Daniel's thinking, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
So I was thinking, oh no, Strand,
and knowing
what's going on?
We have seen in the past with Strand that he is very much one of these, he will, if it means saving his own skin, he will do what he feels is the right thing to ensure his own survival. And I think that's what Daniel was thinking. Daniel was thinking, oh, so you haven't changed at all, Victor. You're the same as you always were. But he's like, no, trust me. I'm gonna, I'm gonna square this circle. I'm gonna make this right. I'm gonna go down there and I'm gonna speak to them and all of this kind of stuff. So Daniel's like, I'm not sure about this. Now, this was the first part, though. This was the first part of this episode that annoyed me, because it's like they got all this grand plan, and then at the sight of Luciana, they go, call everything off. No, we can't do it and stuff. And it's like, they could have still done it. They could have done it, and they could have somebody could have just rode in ahead of the zombies and just snatched her up and got her.
Exactly.
It's like, why did they just cancel the whole plan? I was just like, that. I found that really stupid. The other thing that annoyed me a little bit was when they realized they had a method to get all the zombies out of there. Why did they not just radio her back and say, do you know what? Actually, we thought about it. We're going to try and make it on our own. So then that way she didn't come. I mean, I suppose the argument could be, yes, but when they realized how awful she was, they wanted to try and deal with her so she wouldn't be a problem for them going forward. But at the same time, do you know what I mean? It's like they could have just said, do you know what? Leave us alone. It's fine. We're going to try and make it on our own. We're going to work something out, and that'd be the end of it. And then they could have crowded the zombies away like they did, but just took them away somewhere and then come back and then live there without any, and maybe they would have had to deal with her in the future, but they would have been more prepared because they could have fortified the place and they could have, made themselves ready. So like we've seen in the main shows, they could have, built fences and done this, that, and the other. So when the day came that she turned up, they could be in a position to fight back, sort of thing,
Yeah.
But they didn't.
But then also, well, no, they didn't do that. So basically, they were trying to then herd the herd a different way again, and it got a bit chaotic, didn't it? So Dwight was in trouble. Oh, that was horrible. I didn't like that bit at all.
Oh, the poor horse.
And I knew what was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen as soon as, because originally I was thinking, get off the horse. Let them have the horse, because they'll eat the horse, then you can get away. But I didn't always want them to kill a horse, because the last time they did that was when Rick had a horse in Walking Dead, wasn't it? It was like, oh, it's so awful. So he was getting bombarded. So he decided to run and goes, you guys, move them. I'm fine. Leave me alone. And some of them were coming towards him, and he was like, no, don't worry about me. And I thought, they ain't going to leave him on his own.
Because he hurt his legs as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he was hobbling, and Morgan said to Grace, because they were on the same horse, said, because she finally got to ride a horse, a proper horse.
Yeah.
He said, can you do this on your own now? And she says, yeah, I know what I'm doing. And so he got off and he went running with his stick to try and help Dwight.
Yeah.
While the others tried to pull the walkers away from where he was. Oh, I was just like, oh, so scary. And then John had an idea and he went, I know what we'll do. And Morgan finally got to Dwight and he says, right, hide over there, keep out of sight.
Because there was a river, wasn't there? Yeah, there was like a rapids and stuff and like a fast-flowing river. Which they'd got backed up to by the zombies. And so then, like you said, John had the idea. They hid in the bushes. The others came tearing past on the horses to distract and make the walkers follow them. And then they led them into the river, didn't they?
And then we had surfing walkers.
That was brilliant. That must have been a lot of fun.
I thought, that's one for you, Chris Hardwick.
Yeah. The people that were in the zombie makeup and stuff, that must have been quite fun. Because it looked like, when you go to a water park and they have the fast flowing river
rapids,
things and the rapids and that, and there's like all these going wee, like all flying past out the river.
So basically, they all got flooded away, didn't they?
Yeah.
It's like, yay, brilliant. So back at the ranch, we had like a few bits where they were like saying we could make a go of this, and they found there was a church, and the rabbi was happy, and Alicia was on about painting and talking to that Wes guy. There's also like making plans of what they could perhaps make of the place.
Yeah.
But I was updating them on Ginny's plan. Obviously, she's saying that can't trust her. She's got something. She's not going to just let us stay together. And they said, well, that's why we'll stay here. We'll just fight it out. We'll stay, right? That's what they were saying. They all had guns and they were ready for what happened. So then we had the wedding. Yay, we had a wedding!
Yay, finally. And that was nice. We had Grace and Daniel singing and Charlie accompanying them on the guitar. And obviously the rabbi married them.
Dwight gave them his rings because they didn't have a ring, did they?
Yeah, and that bit was funny, wasn't it?
When John's wouldn't fit on his finger.
Yep.
So the little girl got like a shoelace or something, didn't she? And they made it. Yeah. So he had a necklace around his neck. And she goes, don't you lose that. And I thought, we've got the wedding. That is great. Now it's all going to go wrong. And then it did. Yeah. And obviously they heard the trucks arrive and they all had their weapons and they opened the door. And then she was like, she was really impressed. But she like, you managed to get rid of them. Blah, blah, blah. And he's going, we have terms. But I thought, why? So they still were going to make a go of it, and then they had terms. I thought, why have you got terms? You should be saying, now we've got rid of them. Like you said, bog off now. We don't need you. And instead he's going, the terms were they had to stay together, blah-de, blah-de, blah-de. And she was just like, yeah, of course, we sorted it out and all that. But she had no intention of doing that.
No.
And then Strand was there, wasn't he? He was with her, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, has he got a plan, or has he turned his back? Has he turned back to his old ways? I thought, what has he negotiated with her that they don't know about?
Well, yeah, because he looked a bit shifty at the time because he'd given her the starter for the SWAT truck, and then Al said something to her about the SWAT truck about I'm the only one that knows, and she's like, oh, don't worry about that. We're going to have more use for you elsewhere. We've got people that know how to work things like that. We've got mechanics and stuff.
Yeah,
so
it was horrible
we don't
because
need you for that.
But they literally just took them all separately. They were like, you're going in that truck, you're going in that one. They took skid mark.
It made me think of like when you see the things, in the war movies where they're sending off the Jews to the concentration camps and stuff, and the way they split them up, and it was kind of like that. The way they were like, right, we'll take these people here, and they split up purposefully. The
like
core
teams.
There was a couple that got to stay together. So like one of the things that Strand clearly had negotiated, which was that he got to stay with Alicia and with who was the third was with them, because it was Strand, Alicia, and was it Wes got to go together?
Yeah.
And then she was like, really like, what are you playing at, Victor? And he's like, I have a plan. And he's like, this makes more sense. We've got a better chance of taking them down if we infiltrate them from the inside. So you're like, so he hasn't turned. He's just thought, he's thinking like a chess game. He's thinking, move the pieces in the right places. If we try and face off against them like Morgan's planning, we'd all be slaughtered because there's more of them and they've got more guns. Whereas if we can take them out from within, we'll infiltrate them, it'll work out better. So you're like, oh, okay, fair enough.
But it was horrible. It still was horrible though, wasn't it, when they were all taking them, spitting them up.
Like you said, the bit with Charlie and Daniel was sad. She got really upset. He got really upset. And then when they took his cat away and he's like, hey, what are you doing? Where are you taking my cat? And they're like, he travels with me. And this old fella's like, not anymore, he doesn't. And he's like, now get in the truck. And the way they spoke to them as well, they were really mean. Yeah. They were like pushing them away. When people were trying to say goodbye to each other, they were like herding them with their guns. Almost like what they had done with the zombies. They were herding them and like going, get in the truck, shut up, shut your mouth, get in there, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, this is not coming across as people that want to help. This is almost like they were taking them a prisoner and taking them away to different places. So that was really sad. They all drifted off bit by bit by bit.
John and June got split up.
Yeah. And John was like, I'll find you. And he was like battling against these guys. And what did he give her? He said, keep hold of this. It's like a little box or something. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, it was the box where, remember the thing with I love you in it?
Oh,
that's what it was in the cabin years ago.
Yeah, that's what it was. And he said, it's for safekeeping and to remind you of, and he said, and she's like, don't you use that ring and all this sort. And he's like, I'll find my way back to you. Don't worry, I'll find my way back to you. And all this sort. And he's like going, you don't need to push me. And he's like, okay, fellas, and all this. He's brilliant. I love him. He's such a cowboy. He's great.
He's brilliant. Yeah. And then we had Morgan had a little chat with Grace. Finally told her.
Because he had also secured, he had said that was one of the provisos as well.
They needed a doctor for her, didn't they?
So yeah, he finally told her how he felt, and then as she was being taken away by this doctor, so Ginny introduced this doctor and said he's really good at this, that, and the other. That he's going to be able to take a look at her and hopefully help her out. And then she said, "I know how you feel, Morgan. I feel exactly the same way." So you're like, oh, so they both like each other. But then she got taken away, and then he walked out into the street and watched them go off, and the tail lights of the car disappear into the darkness. And then he walks back over, and then he had a conversation with Ginny.
And she said that he was exactly where he said, what about me? Because you're where you should be, or basically you're leaving him there. Thinking, what? Took everyone off him and now just going to leave him there. And then she got a gun on him, didn't she? And it's like, oh, damn, what's she going to do? She's going to kill him. And luckily he got the stick, didn't he? So that, not the gun, she shot him with it, but it didn't kill him.
No, it went through his shoulder.
Yeah. And then she sort of whacked her with the stick, didn't he? And so she's like really annoyed.
And she looked really shocked as well. What was weird was the fact that I wonder at that point, I was like, has she ever actually killed anyone herself? Because after he actually got shot, not just because of the fact she hit him in the face, but because the fact that he fell down with the bullet hole and he was gushing blood, she had this real look of like, oh my God, sort of look on her face. And I thought that moment, I think that's the first time she's ever actually shot a person herself. Yeah. I think she's got her lackeys to do it in the past, but, you know, she was a bit like...
So she kicked his stick away, didn't she? Mm-hmm. And then she there was a dead person, well, it was a zombie, we know that. Yeah. It's a dead zombie that they'd killed when they got into the camp. Mm-hmm. And she grabbed the gun, he's got a gun, and she's like, she had it right in his face, didn't she, basically?
And then her radio went off.
She's got the gun, and he said it's the doctor, and he says, so can you do anything for her? And he goes, oh, okay. And he goes, what's happened? He goes,
she started laughing.
Yeah, but is she all right? He said, yes, she's not sick. And he goes, what? He goes, she's pregnant.
And then she was like, oh,
and then she started taunting him.
She said about, oh, it looks like you were right all along, about how, you know, like basically life can find a way and this, that, and the other. There is hope in the world. And she's like, oh, and, you know, that's the last thing that you'll get to hear and all of this kind of stuff. And then she was going to shoot him, but then walkers started coming out of the bushes.
No, what happened first? She went to shoot him in the head, and it wasn't a real gun because it's a fake.
Of course, it was one of the theme park guns, so it didn't actually do anything.
Yeah, because and she was like really annoyed then because she wanted to finish him off there, and then didn't she? And then she heard the walkers. I thought, oh well, they'll do the job for me, won't they?
So she got in her truck, Morgan, and off she went.
Yeah, and left him there. And he said, I think he sent a message on the walkie, hoping somebody would hear it.
To all
Grace,
of them.
wasn't it?
No, it was to all of them.
To all of them. Yeah, saying basically, you know, have hope. I'm sorry I let you down and all that sort of stuff, wasn't it?
And he's like, you've got to keep fighting. We've come this far. Find each other. Get back together. Make what we did here count and all of this kind of stuff. And as he's doing that, he was like edging himself up against the wall of the church. And these walkers are sort of gradually getting closer and closer to him. And he sat there with his shoulder gushing blood, and he's like weakened and on the floor. And they get close to him, and the camera zooms out, and then it cuts to black, and that was the end.
And we went, no! So, damn her, left him bleeding.
Yeah. And well, I didn't go no. I went, okay, so he'll be back next episode then, because I sat there because it annoyed me. So now we've talked about the episode, I will give you my final thoughts on that finale.
Okay.
It was good. It wasn't as good as I hoped because there were lots of flaws in the storytelling, like I mentioned, that I thought they could have done this, they could have done that. The bits that were good, like the whole, you know, when she came and the way they shepherded, that was quite harrowing and stuff. The idea of herding the walkers, there were a lot of good concepts in this, but there was some of the execution wasn't great. And then the whole thing with her shooting him and then leaving it ambiguous of like, is he dead? Is he not? And it's like, I think the idea was for them to make us think that's the end of Morgan. But I think it was also in that kind of cynical way of, we're not going to give you a definitive, because I don't think he's dead. Because I think if he's dead, given the fact that he's been part of these shows for such a long time, since the very beginning of the Walking Dead, he would have got a proper exit. He wouldn't have got a cliffhanger, fade to black, going out of the show thing. So I think it's more you'll have to come back next season to find out whether he dies or not. And I think it's going to be similar to what they did with Glenn in the main show, where we thought, oh, that's the end of Glenn, but we never got to see. And there's this rule in films and TV is that I know sometimes something comes along to change that format, but generally speaking, if you don't see the person die on screen, there's a good chance they're not actually dead.
They're not dead, yeah.
And that's what I think is going to happen with Morgan. I think.
Oh yeah, but it was still horrible, wasn't it, to think that he's left there all on his own.
Oh god, yeah. And you were just like, what a bitch.
Bleeding out and stuff.
You know, I think I messaged you and said, oh, she's a grade A bitch or something.
Yeah.
because that whole bit, the way she turned it, and she was like, she said something like, the reason, because he was like, why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. And she was like, yes, I do, because I just don't like your face. And she's like, I can't go along doing all of this, having to see your face and all this lot. Now, I don't know whether it was a racial thing, whether it was like your face because you're a black dude, or whether it was like your face because you're so pious and you're so righteous. And I know I'm not, so I don't want you being there. And also, you're a bit of a troublemaker, so I don't want you around. I don't know what they were trying to play with there, but I was just like, oh, she's such a nasty piece of work. Behind all the smiley demeanor and the whole, like, you know, the cocky swagger she has, she's actually quite nasty. But I was just, like I say, I was just annoyed because I was just like, no, because what's going to happen is we're going to get the first, it might not even be the first episode. They might drag it out a little bit longer. But when it comes back, we're going to find out that either Sherry, so like what Dwight thought was like a hallucination or something, is going to turn out not to be. And Sherry's going to come and save him. Or someone else is going to come and save him. Something's going to happen. He's not going to die. He's going to be rescued at the 11th hour. He's going to be so close to death. And then someone's going to, you know, like they're all going to be going, rah, ready to start eating him. He'll maybe be kicking at them or something. And then you'll get like either gunshots, shooting them all, or somebody will come up and stab them.
Stabbed in the head quick.
Something.
Yeah.
And then you'll be revealed of, there's a character. Who's this person? And then that will be the thing.
I hope so.
And then
that's a good way of excited as well.
Well, yeah, because he's in a lot of ways, since Morgan came into it, I know we've still got Strand, Daniel, and Alicia, but, you know, Morgan has come into it, and he's kind of the new sort of...
the main character.
Yeah, he's the glue that holds all of this together. So if you take out him, then you're like, oh, well, what was the point of bringing him over to the show in the first place and all this kind of stuff?
Just to get him killed.
So I think it'll then be him getting on his feet, and then it'll be not only a revenge mission about Ginny, but it'll be, how do I now track down all my people and get them all back together
they're all
again?
going to think he's dead because she's going to say she killed him.
Yeah.
So they're not going to know that he isn't dead. So that's going to be good, isn't it? Because then, and she also is going to think he died.
Mm-hmm.
And for the fact if somebody does come to his rescue, then they're plotting from the outside and they're plotting from the inside. So it's going to make it pretty exciting next season.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So there we go. So that was the finale of this season of Fear the Walking Dead, and we don't have very long to wait at all until The Walking Dead returns.
No.
So we will be talking. We'll be talking about that next week, won't we?
Yes. Yeah. It's on our next week's podcast.
Excellent.
Yes.
That's really cool. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So moving from one horrifying thing to another horrifying thing, we move across to episode 3 of this week's American Horror Story 1984. And nice play on words here. This episode was called Slashdance, but there was no sign of Kevin Bacon in this.
No. Yeah, so we started this one off because obviously at the end of the last one, they were in the cabins. They'd gone back to get the keys for their vehicles. Mm-hmm. And in one of the rooms, which I think Brooke was in, there was someone banging on the door.
Yep.
And we obviously both of us said, well, which one of the baddies is it that's out there? Because we now know there's 2 out there.
Yep.
And it turned out it was the Night Stalker, wasn't it?
Yes. And
the nurse woman said, who is he? That's not Jingles. And the girl said, that's the Night Stalker. The guy I told you to try to kill me. So I was like, finally, somebody's believed her. It's like, yay.
Yeah.
And he was trying to get in, and the things they'd put on the door to stop him getting in the door, they'd put on the window to stop him getting in the window, because he's trying to get through the window, wasn't he?
Yeah, he smashed the window and scared the nurse, didn't he?
Yeah. So they said, we've got to make a run for it. She said, I got the keys, let's go. And then the guy, is it Ray, was saying the logistics of it all, and then Brooke said, well, there's more of us, so he can't get us all.
Yeah. And
he was basically going, yeah, but that means one of us will get caught, and that was all this faffing about. So the 2 girls made a run for it, and the guy, Chet, yeah, and then Ray got cornered by the guy, and he started slashing at him. I was thinking, oh no, poor guy. He said, he said one of us would get caught, and luckily the guy Chet didn't leave him. He went grabbed him, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think they did hit the stalker guy, pulled him out. It was like, yes, whew, thank God he went back for him.
Yep.
So I was like, that was the last we saw of those for a bit. So in the other hut was Xavier, Montana, and Trevor.
Yeah.
And they were stuck in another hut. But in this one, it appeared that Jingles was there. Yeah. It was like, oh no. And someone got thrown in a fire.
That was horrible. Yeah,
A
the window.
firebomb got thrown in.
Yeah, and then obviously Trevor went over to put it out, and then
stamping it all out.
And it turned out it was a bag of poo.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, that was disgusting. So then they realised.
So they opened the door and they realised this wasn't Jingles. It's these pranksters.
Yeah, these two.
That apparently every year go round and do this prankster thing.
Two idiot kids going, "Hey man, it's like the anniversary, so it's a thing. It's like celebrated. So we dress up." And then the taller of these two idiots was like, "Oh, I've been saving my poop up for the last 3 weeks and all this kind of stuff." And you're like, "Oh, that's even grosser. It was human poo." And then I think it was.
She said something about it, didn't she, like, Montana?
You saved your poop, and it's like that's disgusting. And then they're like, "Oh, it's so funny," and this, that, and the other. And then they all stopped dead in their tracks because the real Mr. Jingles was there. But these
behind
guys
them,
didn't
and they thought it was their friend.
Yeah, and they were like joking and like going, "Hey, blah blah blah," this, that, and the other. And he just walked up to the smaller of the two and just stabbed him straight off. Just stabbed him and then cut him up. And then the other guy's like, "Hey, what the hell, dude?" And he turned around, slit his throat, and that was just like, whoa! He just literally, murdered them and then cut off the guy's ear, and they all ran off screaming. They're like, "Oh my god, quick, get away, get away!"
Yeah.
And then
they started.
That was the end of that, and then we cut back to Ray and Chet running away, and then now this. Did you not find this weird? In terms of the whole bigger scheme of things going on at this camp, Chet fell into a pit, which was no, they both fell in, didn't they? But Chet fell, and he fell on. There was spikes in there.
Spikes,
and I'm like,
it, yeah.
Why is this thing even here on a kids' holiday camp? Why is there a spike trap? Do you know what I mean? I was like, what is that doing there? So that made me even more like question what's actually going on here. And like we said last week, the
motives of everything.
Yeah, questioning the woman that's in charge of the place and stuff like that. It's like, why would you have a spike trap in a place that is, going to be like a teenager's like holiday camp type thing? It was very odd. But poor old Chet got like impaled, didn't he?
Yeah. He said, "I can't pull it out because I'll pull it out, you'll die."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh no." Also, because we had them, everyone was like panicking and running away and stuff. We saw the real Jingles again, and he bumped into the other prankster who was having a pee.
Yeah.
That was really odd, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So basically, he had his pee, they put his mask back on, and it was going on about what they're doing, and I thought he's going to kill him, and he didn't.
Because he was just stood looking at this kid. Because he was a dumpy kid, wasn't he? So he was like
he had to use his inhaler as well, didn't he?
Short and fat kid, and he was like going, "I can't believe you guys let me come along. Nobody ever invites me to anything. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate this. This is going to be so much fun." And he's babbling away, and then he said, "Hold on a sec," and he pulled his mask, because they had Mr. Jingles masks with the glasses and everything.
Yeah, that's it.
He pulled that up, and he got out an inhaler and took a puff on that. And Jingles just stood there looking at him, like cocking his head, just watching this kid. And then he just let him go. So I was like, did he feel empathy? Because like maybe when he was young, he was like bullied. Maybe he was an outsider. He's like looking at this, this kid, or did he have bigger, was he already thinking ahead for, potential, what other things could work in his favor or so? I don't know. It was just really odd.
It was very random, wasn't it? The fact they just let him go.
And it's like we said last week with him killing, is he killing indiscriminately, or is he killing people, for a purpose? Are the people he's targeting being targeted specifically? And this kid didn't meet that criteria, which is why he just let him go. It was weird. Then we cut back to the nurse and Brooke, didn't we?
Yeah, at the car, yeah. And she was going, "Where are they? I thought they were just behind us." And it's like, "Well, we need to do something." And she goes, "Well, I know." What did she say? She said that she wanted the keys. She said, "I'll go and get help." And the nurse sort of agreed with her, didn't she? She said, "Well, I'll stay here till they get back." So she turned around to go and put the keys in the car, and the next thing, the nurse stabbed her with something like a needle or something.
Yeah, she drugged her.
And I went, "Oh no!" So then I thought, "Oh, Dom had a theory last week, but perhaps not the same as what was going to be like from last week." So then we had a backstory about her.
Yeah, so we get to see
a week ago,
before Mr. Jingles had escaped, and we see this nurse Rita, and she's not actually called Rita at all. Her name's Donna, and she was a psychology student, a psychology teacher, something like that. And she's got because she goes to the asylum, and she's talking about all these serial killers that she's studied or worked with or something. And I can't remember the names now, but she mentioned a whole host of famous. She said like Ted Bundy
and all that,
and a couple of other people, and she sort of said, you know, how she got inside the head of all these different serial killers, and she wanted to see if she could study and speak to Mr. Jingles. So they take her to meet Mr. Jingles.
So we saw Mr. Skinner again.
Yeah.
Taking her to, and when he got there, he said, "You probably won't get anything," because they'd been saying he hasn't talked and you're not going to get anything from him. And then she said, "Oh, I'm looking forward to the reawakening of Benjamin Richter." And he sort of looked at her and he went, "You know, like getting to the bottom of why he does things and seeing if we can help him." Obviously, we know. So she went in the room and he goes, "There's one thing I will specify. Everything's going to be recorded.
Yep.
He probably won't speak to you. Good luck with that. I'm outside if you need me." So she started talking first, didn't she, to him?
Yeah.
And then she turned the recorder off. Then we realised,
And it turns out she's got a bit of a thing for like serial killers and stuff, hasn't she?
Yeah.
And she was basically encouraging him to do bad things again, because she was like, the only way I can really study you is to study you in your natural environment,
your normal habitat.
Yeah. And she showed him the newspaper, which we know obviously from the other episode was found in his cell, so now we know where he got it from. And she shows him the
saying
paper
about reopening the camp.
Yeah. And she's like, you need to go back there. And he's like, that about the woman and about wanting to kill her and stuff like that. And she's like, yeah, exactly. And he's like, no. And he was trying to resist a little bit, wasn't he? And she was like encouraging him, basically saying, this is the only way that you can be redeemed, for us to understand you and know what makes you work. And so I can study you and all. And like, she's kind of framing it as if like this is going to be therapeutic for him. So then all the stuff.
So basically we found out that she had orchestrated the whole escape, didn't she?
Yeah.
Told him what he had to do. He had to do certain to this, the hanging, and what was the other thing
to get out, and that when he got out, that there was going to be a thing buried that was going to have his outfit in, his coat and all that stuff. And then she said, you know, about making his way to the petrol station and then being able to get from there to the camp and all this stuff. So she like orchestrated all of it. And then she was like, and then when you get there, you need to come looking for me, and then we'll set the next phase into action. So the whole thing that I'd said to you last week about why he didn't kill her was like, either she's a ghost or she's in on it. Obviously, I didn't know to the extent at which she was in on it, but I was right that she was involved somehow.
Yeah.
And then we get to find out. Kill her. Yeah, that's why he didn't kill her, because she's on his side and she kind of was the one that helped him escape. So we then get to find out as well how she also ended up getting the job there.
She was following this girl in a car, and she pulled into the gas station, didn't she? Near the gas station, and said, "Excuse me, can I help you? You seem to have been following me."
Yeah.
And then she goes, "Oh no, I'm looking." Told her she's looking for the camp, didn't she?
Yeah.
She's looking for the place, and goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, don't worry about it." And we noticed the girl wasn't. She goes, "Oh yeah, I'm going there too." She goes, "I'm going to be the nurse."
Yeah.
And as soon as she said it, we both thought, and we saw her name, what was on her outfit.
Yeah.
And then the woman apologized. I apologise if she thought I was following you, but that's basically what. And she goes, "Okay." And then she looked back at us and say, "Weirdo." I went back and went to the toilet, washed her face and that, freshened up, and came back out in the car. The woman who had been driving wasn't there, and she sort of went, "Oh, okay, whatever." Got back in her car, playing the music, singing around, singing along.
Oh, here she comes. Watch out, girl,
Watch out, girl, she's... I know. And then the next thing, she appeared in the back seat.
Yes.
So I was thinking, initially I was going, wow, she's killed her. That's how she got into the camp. Now we know how she got there.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, very, very interesting. So then we went back to the woods, into the pit where Ray and Chet was, and he was saying that Ray was getting upset, and he said he'd only come to the camp because he was in trouble. And then we had a bit of a backstory on him, and he was part of Omega or something.
Yeah,
and it was one of those fraternity things where they make them do horrible things to get into it. What do they call it? I don't know what they call it.
Pledges to get into their
pledges.
Fraternity.
That's it. Yeah. And there was a little Chinese guy called Chan, I think he was.
Yeah.
And they'd already made him drink the stuff, and he was going to puke. And then they had this horrible thing where they had to take their clothes off and be like a herd of elephants, I should say.
Yeah, that was very strange.
that was very strange. And he was going, "Oh, I don't feel very well." And he goes, "Okay, I'm going to give you a few minutes. Just, you have to do it, because you'll never you won't get in the, in the group, and then I'll look stupid, and then they'll pick on you. He was just trying to be nice to it.
And also, he said
wasn't he?
about guys like us, it's harder for guys like us, as in people of colour, to be, to get by in this world and to get accepted into these groups. So we have to do the best to stand out. And he's like, that's why I'm trying to help you, bro. He's like, that's why, you're like me in that we're minorities, so we need to try harder. So he's like, do whatever you need to do, basically go and be sick, get some fresh air, whatever it is. But then 10 minutes, come back in and we'll carry on. And he's like, yeah, okay. And then he fell down the stairs, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he banged his head.
And he thought, well, oh, God, I've killed him. So I think one of the other guys saw him, and he explained. He said, well, you've got to do something. You can't leave him there.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'll take him and get rid of the body. And his plan was to put him in his car, put a thing on the brake, the gas, and the car would go over, and that would be like a car crash.
Yeah.
And so he's all ready to do it, and just as he puts the thing and it starts going, he realised the guy wasn't dead.
Yep.
It's like, what? And he couldn't stop it then, could he?
And he's like,
and he was trying to hang on to him.
Yeah, and he scratched his arm.
And he pulled his watch off him.
Yeah.
And it's like, then he went over, and that was the end of him. It's like, so I had to find some other way. I had to get away because I found out that they found the car, and I thought, well, they're going to find my watch and they're going to know it's me, so that's why I came. And he was going to check. Oh, yeah, I know you probably haven't heard any of that. Blah blah. He goes, yeah, I did. And then he sort of started worrying, then, didn't he? Thinking, you heard what I said. Oh, right, okay. And he goes, what are you doing? He said, I got to get out of this place. He said, don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Don't leave me here. And he's going, no, I can't take that risk. I'm not staying down here. And he buggered off and left him.
Yeah.
It's like, you're going to leave another guy to die now.
Yeah.
It's like, but so he had it so we found out something else about one of the other, one of the people. So we went back to the other guys, Trevor and the gang. They had decided they're going to head for the cars and the bikes where they had to meet, and I think it was Xavier said, I don't want to leave Margaret.
Yeah.
Was it Xavier said it? Yeah. So, and somebody called Birdie, the chef. They said, we can't leave them. And so they were trying to get in. They went in somewhere, didn't they? I think they were going in a back route to get to where Margaret was. And they found there was this girl tied up.
Wasn't it at that point that they could hear Mr. Jingles? So they went to hide, and they went into I don't know, was it like a fishing shed? Or something?
That's right. They heard him and they dived in this. Yeah, I think it was a fishing tackle and stuff in it, wasn't it?
And they found the real.
And they come across this girl.
Nurse. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, she didn't kill her. It's that young girl.
Mm-hmm.
And she panicked. They took the thing off her mouth and whatever, and she went running out, going, crying, and right in front of the path of Jingles coming towards her. The others are still hiding. Yeah,
and then they watched him kill her right in front of their eyes.
Yes.
What did he do? Harpooned her through the head or something?
Yeah, with an oar or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just straight through the middle of her forehead. It's like, oh my God. And then they were trying to stifle their screams and their disgust.
But they also realised then that the nurse
wasn't
said
the
about
nurse.
what's on a thing. Rita, that means the nurse isn't the nurse. It's like, oh. So then they got out of this hut place. They thought Ray suddenly appeared, and that nearly spooked them again. And they're like, oh, what are you doing here? Oh. Yeah. And he said, what did he say? He said he got split up from Chet, didn't he? He made out he didn't know where he was.
That's right.
And they obviously said, well, where's Brooke? And I said, well, she'll probably be at the cars. It's like, oh, okay. So they said, well, we still got to get Margaret and Birdie. And they said to Ray, you and Montana go to the bike, get the bike.
And get to a payphone.
And get help. There's a payphone down the street and ring the police.
Yeah.
So it's like, that was the plan. So off they went. Meanwhile, they're back in the woods. Jingles had heard somebody screaming out. Well, we saw Jingles. We heard somebody calling out in the pit. And
they found Chet.
Yeah, and then there was no sign of this person. And they went, oh, there's Chet. And so Xavier went down, didn't he? And he said, this is going to hurt. He said, but I've got to do it the only way of getting you out here. So he had to pull him off the spike, hold the back and then Trevor pulled him up. Yeah. And he told them what had happened. He said about Ray had left him, also about Ray had killed somebody or something, didn't he? Yeah. He told them that. So they got him and then they got behind a tree and then they heard Jingles coming again. It's like, thought, stay here. And Trevor's going, oh, we can take him. There's three of us. And Xavier goes, well, he's bleeding out, so he's no good to us, is he? He's like, he can't do anything. And he said he might have this knife or something. So I have these guns on his arms.
Yes, and I think
he went charging towards.
The idea was to push him into the pit, wasn't it?
Yeah. So there was the pit. So said, right, we're going to get him. Pushed him into the pit. Go over. Think they've done the good job. And it was the guy that was dressed up as him.
It was the
I knew. Oh. It's like, that's probably who he saw in the woods when he heard the pit. That's why he was heading towards the pit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh no, we haven't killed him. There he is. So then we go back to the car park, and we had Ray and Montana had got the car. They said, well, there's no sign of anyone, but somebody's been here. They seem like drag marks.
Yes.
Like, obviously, because the nurse had dragged her away afterwards, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
But the Night Stalker turned up, didn't he?
Yes, and Ray chickened out, jumped on the motorbike,
again,
and left her.
Buggered off and left her.
But
as he was driving along at a speed, thinking he'd got away with it, Jingles appeared and chopped his head off.
It was awesome. It was just the way that
was hilarious.
The motorbike zooming away. He steps out into the road to the side of the motorbike, and as Ray went past him, he just put out like a machete and just went, just lopped his head off, and the bike just carried on going until it fell over, and obviously the head fell to the floor and the body fell the other way, and it was just so cool. It was horrible, but it was cool the way he did it. You know, just like he just stood there. There was no effort. It was just like, there's my knife, chop. So yeah,
serves him right.
It does.
So then we went back to the car, and then poor old Montana was thinking, she's there, stalker's coming towards her,
looking all.
And then the next thing, they were kissing each other, and then she bit his lip.
Yep, and he stepped back and
they went back, and she looked at her, and she goes, why haven't you killed her yet?
And that was how it ended. I know.
And I went, no.
It's like, so she's a baddie as well.
It's like, oh my days. So how many more of them are? Or the others genuine? I don't know. I'm not going now.
I know. It's like,
that was a shocker.
Nobody.
That was so good.
Yeah,
the whole thing was good. Brilliant.
Was really good.
I'm loving it.
And I'm interested. I'm wondering if we'll get the story of them next episode, because the next one's called True Killers. So I wonder whether it'll be about them, like how they became a couple and what the reason is that Brooke's been targeted and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we'll hopefully find all of that out. But yeah, it's like all of this stuff that happened, you know, the thing with the nurse, and then obviously the Mr. Jingle stuff, and the stuff with Ray, and then with them. It's just like, oh my God. It's like I said to you last week.
So much information in one episode.
Yeah, they're not holding back. They're really, you know, rattling through all of this at a pace, aren't they?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
So good.
Yeah.
Really, really enjoyed
really loving this one. Yeah, me too. It's like, because I didn't think I was going to. I didn't think you would, because I didn't know if you like those sort of slasher type, those sort of kind of movies. And I thought, don't know if Dom was going to enjoy this, but obviously I thought I'd probably secretly enjoy it, because I quite like things like that sometimes. It's like we're both on board, just like, what they're going to reveal next week. But also you're going to have something about them too. But what else?
Yeah.
And what's happened where she took the girl, where she took Brooke?
Yes.
So it's like, ooh.
And the other thing I've just found out that's going to be, I just saw this, that's going to be interesting about next week's is it's directed by Jennifer Lynch. And Jennifer Lynch is the daughter of David Lynch, who is famous for being the guy behind Twin Peaks and Mulholland Drive and several very strange, surreal thrillers and things like that. So if daughter is anything like him when it comes to the tone of making things, next week's episode could be very strange.
Can't wait.
But yes, there we go. So yep, happy with that one. So now we move on to the next one. Preacher finale, final ever episode called End of the World, quite appropriately.
Yes.
So yeah, this is it. This is where it all comes to an end. This is where it all comes to a head. Everything that's been building up for 4 seasons gets to this point, and we get resolutions to storylines and things, to a point. What did you think?
Yeah, well, there was lots in it.
Yeah.
There's lots happening. So we were in North Dakota. There's an army base.
Yeah.
And obviously they're waiting to make the, whatever they were going to do.
Nuclear codes.
Set off the nuclear codes and stuff. And we had a bagpipe guy doing a countdown, and everybody's waiting. And there was Kaz and Humperdoo and God in the dressing room, ready, waiting.
Yeah.
And then we went back to Jesse and the Saint in
Yeah.
the church.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they were obviously where they'd left off. Oh, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. There was also a bit where obviously God was in the room with Humperdoo and with Cassidy.
Cass.
And Humperdoo was clearly getting nervous. Cassidy was telling him, "You're going to be all right. It's going to be fine." And then God was like in the background making jokes. Didn't Cassidy say something like he was a bit like Gene Kelly or something like that?
Mm.
And then God left.
With sparkly shoes and everything.
Yeah, God left them. And God went out and sat in amongst all the people.
Oh, yeah, with all the people that were eating popcorn, right, waiting.
I was really confused because at the end of the last one, God was in the church with Jesse and the Saint of Killers.
No, but he walked out, didn't he? Because he said he's not come for me, he's come for you, and he walked out of the church.
Yeah, but I wasn't expecting him to have walked out the church, gone back to the dressing room, sat down in there and had a chat with them, left there, gone back into the audience. Do you know what I mean? It was like a bit like that all a lot of that happened from the point, and considering the fact that Jesse and the Saint were in exactly the same place they were at the end of the episode, but yet God had gone up and done all this other stuff.
God is everywhere, isn't he?
Yeah, I suppose. It just threw me a little bit. I was like, wait a second, these timelines don't quite match up. It's like, how's God there when he was there a minute? I don't know. But yeah, it was funny as well, because when he came and sat in the audience, there was this couple in front of them, in front of where he was sat. And they were like, hey, it's you. And they're like, big fans, really pleased to meet you, and all this kind of stuff. And then the guy was like, can I ask you a few questions? And he's like, there's a few things I've always wanted to ask you. And God's like, as if so, I really don't want to. And then he did something, didn't he? Made a gesture, and then the bagpiper stopped playing, as if to say, that's the cue. I don't want to answer this man's questions. That's the cue. Move on. Next bit. And all the while, the counter was counting down. I think at this point in the episode, it was about 8 minutes or something, 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not long now until the end of the world.
No.
And then
that's when we went back to Jesse and the Saint fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And the angel and the demon arrived, didn't they, to the rescue?
Because what did he say? The Saint knocked him down, didn't he? And he was about
parents are here or something.
Yeah, he was about to kill Jesse or something. And Jesse was like, I don't know what the parents will think about that, or you're going to have to deal with the parents or something like that. And he's like, what are you talking about? And turned around. And like you said, the demon and the angel were there. And then they had a whole fight. So, I mean, the thing is, what I think we'll do here until we get to the more lengthy sections is we'll just talk about each bit as it happened, because this episode, for everyone at home that hasn't seen it, jumped around a hell of a lot.
Jumped around loads.
And we got 2-second clips of these people, then it went to a different bit, then it went back to those people, then it went to another bit. So if we talk about it in that way, it's going to be so disjointed and confusing. So yeah, the angel and the demon were there, and then they all got into a big brawl. Jesse was there on the altar section, wasn't he? Just watching as they were fighting against the Saint of Killers. And what was it? Oh yeah, he got his gun out and he shot, and then the angel had a holy sword and obviously chopped the bullet in half or whatever. And then Jesse was like, you brought a gun to a knife fight, like that. And then the Saint pulled out his big flipping sword, like they had the swords they had during the Civil War and stuff. I can't remember what they're called at the moment. They've got a name, but and then you're like, oh, okay, so he's prepared for anything. And then there was just this big knockdown fight where he was throwing them around. They were coming back at him. The demon actually slashed his face at one point, so she got a hit on him. So it's like, oh, and then he got very cross, didn't he? And he stabbed the angel and threw him across the room. And while the angel got knocked down and landed next to Jesse, she was carrying on fighting away against him. And that was when, like we've said before, because the Saint of Killers is a saint, he's a otherworldly being. He's got the power to kill otherworldly beings. Because didn't Jesse say to the angel, but you'll come back? Because he was going, I'm done for. He got me in the spleen or whatever. And he's like, but you'll come back. And he's like, no, not from this guy. This guy can.
That's what the shocker was, wasn't it? He could actually kill them.
Yeah.
And he did. He actually killed them both.
Yep. Oh, and he went to
town.
He went to town on the woman.
I know.
He was slashing her.
No.
Wasn't he? Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then he's like, right, back to business. And he comes over to Jesse and he's like, now's your time to die, preacher. And he's all ready to kill him. And then Jesse's like, yeah, well, I get what you wanted. God's going to give you that better life, paradise with your family. But there's going to be no more killing. no more killing ever again and all this stuff. And I was like, is he trying to get inside his head? Like, to be like, this is what you do. You're a killer. And if you go to heaven and stuff like that, you won't be able to do that anymore. The thing that you've always done. It's like, what is he trying to do? Is he trying to manipulate him? It was very odd.
Yes.
And then we left them, and that was the end of that for quite a while, wasn't it? Them two.
Yeah, yeah. And then we went back to, we had Featherstone pouring her heart out to Tulip about her past and her obsession with Klaus.
Yes.
And saying that she can't do with it anymore. Pardon?
She used to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And was her name Wendy or something?
Sarah.
Or Sarah or something like that, yeah. Something really normal.
Yeah. And obviously she'd obsessed over him and his plan, and she wanted to, she thought end of the world. She was happy to go out with a bang as long as she went out with him, basically, wasn't it? Something like that. And then he's obviously betrayed her now because it was never going to be that. And she said she couldn't deal with it anymore. She tried to shoot herself, didn't she? And there was no bullets.
What did she say? Something about the wicked and like when the wicked lie down with the righteous or something. And that, that they deserve to be punished. And that was the moment where she was going to shoot herself because obviously she slept with him last episode. And she's now obviously realised he's not a righteous man, he's a wicked man. And then that was really funny because Tulip's just sat there watching her the whole time. And then she like goes, oh yeah, sometimes when it gets too hot, the starting pins like get too warm and it won't lock properly. And she said, let me take a look at that for you. And she's like having a look at the gun, and but there's nothing wrong with the gun. The gun's still got bullets in it, but it's just not firing because she had been firing it previously because like she shot above her head at the guy in the corner and things like that. And then Tulip's like, she's like, thank you and all this. It was so weird, and like the way she made her realize, like, come to her senses. And then Tulip's like, I'm keeping the gun though. And she's like, and she put the gun in the back of her trousers and
walked
out of the room. Yeah. And then Featherstone sat there for a minute, and then she sort of looked resolute of like, I know what I have to do now. You want to stick with that bit for a minute? What she did? Yeah,
go on then. Because obviously then we saw Star trying to get the word out, like, because he was worried that obviously we're all going to die.
Getting really annoyed with the fax machine.
Yeah. It's like, seriously, all I want to do is send a message out and all this. And she went to see him, didn't she?
Yes.
And he said he's going to save her and we're going to live under the sea.
Oh, that bit, I was in stitches when he said that. He's like, I've been in touch with a Russian submarine or something. And he's like, they're going to collect us and take us far away from here. And then we will live a new life together under the sea. Oh, it's so funny. It just reminded me of that. There's an episode of The Simpsons where Homer's on about that, and he's like, that basically, like, if the world comes to it, this all right, we're just going to go live under the sea. And it's like, it's so unrealistic. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it just made me think of that. I just found it so amusing.
Yeah. But she said she wasn't interested, wasn't she?
Yeah, and she said no, and because she was like, I believed in you, and she got really upset, didn't she? She was like tearing up. And then she was like, just get on the top. Get on the top. So there's no mess. I'm going to do this. And she's like, and he's like, you don't want to kill me. And he's like, and then what was funny was his little speech where basically you can interpret what he said as the closest thing he'll probably ever say to anybody of I love you, which was when he sort of said, you have stood loyally by my side and you have followed everything that I said. And he says all this kind of stuff. And then he's like, I am very, very fond of you, Flufferman. Like that, and it's like, that was almost like...
She said, my name is Featherstone. Yeah. She got really annoyed with him, didn't she?
She pulled the gun out to shoot him again, because it's like, you never get my name right. So he called it. She knew what was going to happen next. And then, bang, there was a gunshot. And then the camera changed, and it showed her falling backwards. And he shot, because he had a little pistol in his drawer next to him, and obviously he was a quicker drawer than she was, and he shot her in the head.
So, that's the end of her.
So then we left him for a little while.
We left him for a little while, and we went back to Jesus and Hitler.
Yes.
From last week.
Yep.
Still fighting.
And what a fight it was.
Quite good. Oh, it was great. It's like, that went on quite a long time, fair.
Yeah.
So we had Jesus and him scrapping, and then obviously that we can't talk about any more of that until later on because there's something that happens in between.
Yeah.
Then we have Humpadoo hiding in the clothes.
Oh.
He doesn't want to dance.
Now, this was interesting. Now, obviously, we never really got an explanation for this, but do you think that he realized, because they always portray him as like being very, simple and childlike and things like that, but do you think he knew?
Yeah.
Do you think he knew what all of this meant, that once he danced, that was going to be it, that was going to the end of the world, and that's why he didn't want to do it?
Yeah.
Because he's always loved the dancing. It's always been the thing, where he's like got really excited about doing the dancing, and this one time, and he's just like, no, like I don't want to do it.
You could see, I suppose he could hear bits of what was going on around him, thinking, this isn't like me going out to dance because they want to see me dance.
Yeah.
Something bad's going to happen. He didn't know what's going to happen, but he knew it sounded like something bad was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Cass trying to force him.
Yeah.
They're like, come on, you'll be great, in your sparkly shoes and bloody. And he's going, hiding behind the clothes thing, going, no. And then Tulip turned up. That was interesting.
And then we had the mother of all fights between them two, because
so
she was basically trying to get to him, wasn't she? And Cassidy wouldn't let her, and so she kept punching him. And he's like,
It was quite funny because at the time we had Cass and Tulip fighting. We also saw Jesus and Hitler fighting.
Yeah.
And I think we saw Jesse and Thingy fighting.
Yeah.
All in little. It was like a split screen, wasn't it?
And I think
all the fights that were going on at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, in that timeline, obviously, we finished off the bit with Star and Featherstone, but at that time as well, when all that was going on, we also got her Star fighting with the fax machine.
Oh, yeah.
So you had like people fighting people, and he was like getting annoyed. Like that was his opponent, was the fax machine, which was quite funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was like, "Get out of my way, Cass," and she's like, "You know what has to happen here? If he lives, he goes out there, they make him dance. That's it. Everything's over." And he's like, "Yeah, I know that, but I can't let you do that." And she's like, "Well, I'll just go through you then." And she hit him, and then he just started getting more and more pissed off with her, didn't he? He's like, "I put up with a lot from you over the years, and I've let you hit me so many times, but if you hit me one more time, I'll kill you." And it was like, oh my God. And then she went, "Okay, I understand." Bang, punched him again. And then that was it. Big brawl. And it just was a real smackdown fight, wasn't it? Just throwing each other around the room, and lots of picking each other up and throwing them and punching and kicking. And yeah, it was brutal. It was a real brutal knockdown fight. And poor old Humpadoo was hiding in the clothes rack the whole time watching all this go on.
And while this was going on, everyone in the arena were getting impatient. And obviously God knew that they couldn't do it because the timer was up, wasn't it?
Yeah, it got
and
to
he's
zero,
thinking like, we can't do anything until he gets. So he sent someone to find where he was.
That couple.
Oh yeah, he said you need to go and find the Messiah.
Mm-hmm. And then some big guy went with them.
Yeah. So, but then Kaz did the right thing, didn't he?
Well, yeah, because they went to the room and they were banging on the door and going, "Messiah, Messiah!" And in the meantime, these two are fighting, and Tulip by this point, they'd moved on from the normal punching and kicking to guns, and she shot Cassidy, didn't she?
Yeah.
And then he eventually ended up with the gun, and he had her, and he was pointing his gun at her, and he was just like, ready to kill her. I mean, this bit confused me a little bit in that I was a bit like, but he's a vampire. Why didn't he just like get his fangs out and bite her neck?
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I found really weird. I just found it really strange.
It's her, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, maybe there's a code of like, well, I wouldn't do that to you, sort of thing. I'll fight you and fight you to the death, but I won't rip your throat out, sort of thing.
But what convinced him is when he turned, like, obviously he was winning the fight. I think he knocked her out of the way for a while, and he looked in there. He was hiding in there. He said, "You're gonna do it?" And he's like, "No." Like, he's just basically just said he didn't want to do it, didn't he? It was almost like pleading with him, but it was like he was wanting him to do something about it. Looking at it like, you're the one that has to do it.
Yeah.
And Kaz shot him. It was like, oh no, but he had to, and Humpadoo wanted him to. I think. I think he realised that's the only way out, because otherwise I'll be forced to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he shot him. Then the next thing, Jesse arrived at the door, didn't he?
Yeah, because the door had been gradually getting like smashed into. So the whole while this was going on, the door was getting almost like broken off its hinges, because there was this big guy that had come with that couple, and he was like charging into the door trying to smash it open, And they kept looking at this of like, they're going to break in any minute. And that was also what helped Cassidy make his decision, because it was like, any minute now, they're coming through that door and they're going to take him. So the decision has to be made, finite decision here and now. And so obviously he did, pulled the trigger, shot him. But then the door burst open. And like you said, it wasn't that guy, it was Jesse. So it's like, wait, what? What's happened? Like, how is Jesse here? How, like, he was with the Saint. What's going on?
There was chaos all out in the hallway where other people had been killed, also him getting his way to the door. And then it was like, I think he stood there, and then we saw like the flashback to what happened in the church, didn't we?
Yeah, where he was fighting with the Saint, and the next thing he killed the Saint.
He beheaded him.
What? Yeah. So it's like, oh my God. So somehow Jesse got the upper hand. We still didn't know all of that story yet, of exactly what went down. So we won't talk about all of it. But yeah, somehow he got the upper hand and he killed the Saint. So it's like, wow. Yeah. And then you had that horrible moment where I was like, wait, maybe they missed, maybe he shot the wall or something, because Humperdoo came through the clothing. But like, it was him, just his lifeless body just falling forward, wasn't it?
Kaz was ever so sad, wasn't he, when he realised he did it.
And because they laid him down with his arms across him, and he was like, he was the greatest mate I ever had. He was such a lovely fella. He loved everybody, even a gobshite like me, and all this kind of stuff. And he was in tears, and he was it was so sad, that moment. It was really bittersweet, that whole section of like, we knew it had to be done, but it was a horrible thing that happened.
We had another snippet of something that last week we had the conversation about, Eugene and his singing, and he got shot, he got run over, and we said something about the singing, and maybe the guy had an heart attack that ran into him. And we had a hospital bed, didn't they? And this guy had in the bed, and they had all the bandages on his face, and saying, "We've done what we can. Hopefully, we can make you back to what you should be, near as damn it, as you should be."
Were you sat there in the same way that, like, I didn't have any anticipation about what was going to happen, but Zoe was like, are they going to have fixed him? Is he going to look like he did before? Like, did you wonder that? Did you think he was going to look like he did, like, the old Eugene sort of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, they took off all the bandages.
And then the doctor went, oh, really scared, like, it's just the same money.
Yeah, I didn't understand though, because they were like saying all the top plastic surgeons had been working around the clock on him and stuff, and it's like, but yeah,
his face was just the same.
Has a face like a butt. It's like, like, why is that? Why could they not fix his face? But yeah, so he's alive. So that was like, yay, that's fantastic.
At least he's alive.
So Eugene's fine. So Eugene's in the hospital. And then later on, we get another scene with him where it's evening time. And clearly it's one of the plastic surgeons, you never get to see who he is, comes in and he's like, I'm really sorry, we did everything we could. We've all been working really hard, but we let you down. And he's like, it's not fair on you. And he's saying all this stuff, basically, your life has been a life of hardship. And he's like, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this off and I'm going to undo this thing and I'm going to give you this. And when I leave the room, you just click that button as much as you want and it'll just inject as much morphine as you can possibly manage into your body.
Yeah.
And you'll gradually drift off and you'll die and your pain will be over. And you're like...
And you'll be free.
Wow. And then he laid there for a minute, didn't he? And then he just went, no. And then he did this whole speech about basically how he was sick and tired of everybody feeling sorry for him and making him feel this way. And he's like, yes, my life's been hard. Yes, I was bullied. Yes, I was teased. But I'm still here. I'm still here. I've gone through. I mean, he didn't. Obviously, we know as the viewers, we're like, yeah, he's been to hell. He's come back again.
Hell and back.
Yeah. And it's like, this guy, the strength of his character, he has been through so much and he's still there. He got run over and he's still there, So he's like, don't you pity me. Don't you feel sorry for me. I am Eugene Edward Root and all of this lot. And he's like, I'm going to live my life and I'm going to be me and all of this thing. And you're like, good on you, Eugene.
And then we saw him afterwards, didn't we? And he was doing his busking again. He started singing that song again.
Yeah.
And then he thought about, no, everybody's ignoring him. And he just started, he made some random song up that was with rock music, didn't he?
Some like punk rock song that he was just singing about, like, how everything sucked.
Disneyland and all sorts.
Yeah.
And people will start giving him money then. It's like, yeah, he's made it. He's been accepted.
So that was interesting.
So you got a happy ending at the end, didn't
you?
you?
He did. So that was
Bless
that.
him.
That was that with Eugene. That was basically
That was Eugene done.
all of Eugene. We have a little tiny smidgen to do with Eugene towards the end, but that was it pretty much of his main story. So then we go from there.
Go back to the place where obviously God now knows that Humperdoo is gone, and he wants Jesus to be the Messiah, doesn't he?
Yeah, he decides I've got backup. I've got plan B.
I have to go to him now.
Yeah.
And Jesus was trying to convince him that this thing shouldn't happen and all this stuff, didn't he?
No. But in the meantime, before God got to the room where Jesus was, Jesus and Hitler were finishing their fight, and there was a really cool bit. And I thought, when you think about the poetic justice of it all, it made perfect sense, because Jesus got the upper hand and he had Hitler on the floor and he was strangling him, and Hitler looked up at him and went, "God damn Jew!" And then Jesus went, "You're goddamn right," and then he crushed Hitler's throat. And it's like the genocidal killer of the Jews was
got killed by a Jew.
He was the king of the Jews.
The king of the Jews.
The king of the Jews was the one that ultimately finished off the killer of the Jews. And I just thought, from a
poetic justice.
Yeah, from that perspective, it was perfect.
Yeah.
To have that. So, I mean, I assume that Hitler's not dead, because Hitler's already dead. So maybe he just got sent back to hell and he was like left there forever. Because, he came from hell. He was like ruling hell. Yeah. So, because we never got to see him again after that. It was the thing was like, oh, Jesus finished him off. But I think that like banished back to hell sort of thing. But I don't know. We never got any resolution on the hell thing of like who was in charge now or anything like that.
No.
One of the niggles I had with this episode. Yeah, that was cool. And then that's when God turned up, and then Jesus was all bloody and battered and this, that, and the other. And then that's when God said, I need you to be the Messiah. I need you to do it. And he said, and then he gave this, he was saying about like, these people, because Jesus was asking him like, why do you need all of this though? Why do you need all of this pomp and ceremony and all this kind of, I don't understand, why the need for all of this? And he's like, I don't need you. Of course I don't need you. I could just destroy everything with a click of my fingers. He's like, but this is the way it's supposed to, because he got really flippant with him, didn't he? He came from, I need you to do this, to when Jesus was like questioning him of like saying, well, yeah, you're just you're a figurehead, you're a token. You're there to give the people what they want. It's show business. It's showmanship. You just got to stand up there on the stage. Because yes, I'm God. I could just click my fingers and destroy everything. But we got to give them a show, kid. We got to go out with a bang. And then Jesus was saying about all of the things, the traditions, and he's like, why can't you be, rather than being a merciless and a vengeful God, why can't you be a forgiving God, a loving God? Be kind, be merciful. And then he sort of started saying, like when he was Jesus, as in Jesus in the New Testament days, not modern day Jesus, the kind of virtues that he would have espoused then about love and charity and peace and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Because he refused to do it. He was like, no, I won't do it. And then God had no
God got really annoyed.
Yeah, God had no interest in all of these nice, happy, sort of, peaceful things Jesus was saying. And he's just like, rah, and he just like stormed out of the room.
And got his bike and rode away. Yeah. And meanwhile, because they were waiting for it, they were chanting, and somebody arrived, and it wasn't Jesus, it wasn't the Messiah, and it was Jesse.
Yeah, and they all booed him to begin with.
And then he got Genesis to make a speech, didn't he?
Yep. And he basically...
Do you remember what he said?
Well, he basically said, that's it. He said the apocalypse is finished. It's not happening. And then he said that God's run away again. But this time, I'm not letting him get away. And then he used the voice on them all and basically turned them into his own private army. And he was like, I want you to scour the world. I want you to track him down. And I want you to find him. And when you find him, you tell me. And it's like, basically me and him, there's going to be a reckoning. You are,
yes.
you're
so
all working in my service now. Yeah, they're going on a God hunt. They're going to catch the big one.
Gonna catch the mighty one.
But yeah, so he's now got his own army. He's got like all these grail, nut jobs are all working for him now. because he used the voice on them. So they all left there, and then you had a really nice little moment with the 3 original characters there on the stage,
reflecting on saving the world.
Like, we actually did it. We actually saved the world. And it's like, there's not many people that can. Oh, I love that. And he's like, Jesse's like, there's not many people that can say that. And then Cassidy's like, Churchill. And he's like, okay, yeah, fair enough. And he's like, Lincoln. And he's like, yeah, okay. And then Frodo Baggins.
Yeah, that was excellent. And Jesse,
you mean the little guy with the furry feet that lived with the wizard? And then he's like, he didn't live with him. He's like, he was there as his guest. And he's like, all this that. And he's like, Cass, you know he's not real, right? Like that. And he's like, says you. I love that whole little exchange.
That was excellent.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And then obviously Tulip doesn't get involved in those little conversations. So they had their little sort of backwards and forwards boy thing. And then she did the whole end of the world. So it like echoed through that big chamber.
Yeah.
And I was like, we did it. The 3 of us
and then
stood down against all of these forces, and we did it. We stopped the apocalypse.
We destroyed it. Destroyed their plan.
And then
it went Texas 2 years later.
Yeah.
So we had Jesse and Tulip running away from some baddies, like mob people again, like they did originally when they were in Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
Dallas, wasn't it Dallas last time, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we had the guy from the bar in the one where the demon and angel were. He was now working at O'Hare's auto repair.
Yeah, they had a garage.
So had a little business. And he goes, how's things? Right, yeah, everything's fine. We had a little bit of an accident, and then we showed them going into a room, and there was a baby.
Yeah.
He'd obviously been babysitting the baby. I went, yeah, they have a baby.
They had a daughter.
It's like, yay.
I love the fact that you noticed the little close up on her baby mobile, and the things that were on it. There was like a dinosaur on it and things like that. And I was like, I bet you they're little things from the show, like from the like themed things that come up, like with God and the dinosaurs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then they talked about the Cassidy, whether they'd heard from him, and that he was the last they'd heard. What did they say? The last they'd heard from him, he was in Vegas selling something or other, and he just got like wasted with Woody Harrelson or something like that.
That's it, Woody Harrelson, yeah. And then Jesse gets a phone call.
Yeah, before the phone call, I was just going to say, you got the impression that Cassidy went off after they finished in Masada.
Did his own thing and left them to it, yeah.
Because they hadn't obviously seen him for a long time, and it was like, oh, well, he'll be back soon. They kept saying he'd be back soon, and that again, that's kind of important, that they were under the assumption that soon he would be returning to them. And then Jesse got a phone call, to
say someone has found God in San Antonio.
Yes, and did you know where it was straight away before it came up on the screen? Because when they showed obviously him arriving there and he's walking through the crowds and there's a building in the background, and straight off the bat, I just thought, again, it would be appropriate for this to happen here. And I said to Zoe, I was like, that's the Alamo. I'm sure that's the Alamo. And then it came up on the screen, the Alamo. And I was like,
the Alamo.
Get me. I know my Americana. I knew what that place was. But it was just kind of appropriate. It was like this showdown with God at the Alamo. It just sort of seemed a little bit, like, the last stand type thing. And he let all the people out of his service, didn't he, Jesse? He's just kind of like, that's it, your job's done, you're all released, go home. And then loads of them fell down dead.
Yeah.
Because did you get that? Because I was a bit like, what happened? It was only like Zoe was the one that sort of made me realise what happened. But did you get why that happened?
Why they died?
Yeah.
Presumed that they were only alive because they were in his presence.
No, I think it was more because that's all they'd done for the last couple of years. They hadn't eaten or slept or anything. They just
I suppose they're exhausted.
The word was controlling them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they just were obviously malnourished and everything, and they died. The only thing that was keeping them alive was the power of the voice.
Yeah. So as soon as he said, "That's it," it's like, I can die now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So we found out that Genesis could control God. That was interesting. Very
interesting, because he got him to make it day and night and stuff, didn't he?
Yeah.
Make it day, make it night.
And so they decided to have a chat about things, didn't they? They sat down, had a chat, and he was asking him about God in general, like why children with cancer? Why do you let kids? And he was saying, what was he saying?
Well, like the children with cancer thing, he said, why do you let children have cancer and stuff? And he's like, it's a lesson, and it's about strength, not for the people that are suffering, but for the people that are left behind, because they have to learn to be strong and that strength gives them the ability to continue through the rest of the hardships that life has to offer. So it's a gift in a way. It's like, it might seem cruel, but the gift I'm giving is
cruel to be kind. That attitude.
Yeah, it's the person that's left behind is receiving the gift of strength because they have to become strong due to the traumatic thing that they've gone through.
Yeah, and then he was asked about other faiths.
Yeah, that bit was funny. Are they all wrong? Are they all going to hell? And he's like, no. And he's laughing. And then he's like, really? And then he's like, well, maybe.
and then he was asked on about aliens and other planets.
Mm-hmm.
And he was claiming, he claims there's nothing out there, didn't he?
Yeah, he's like, really? Like, it's almost as if, like, why would I go to all that extra effort to make even more life? And he's like, what are you expecting? Little green men with laser guns coming down here to attack you and all this kind of stuff? And he's like, no, of course not. It's all just gas and water and stuff.
Yeah. And then Jess asked him about his dad, didn't he? Because it's my dad in heaven, did he say?
Yeah.
And they had a little chat. And then God said he loved Jesse and wanted Jesse to say it back to him.
Yeah.
He said, you say it back to me and I'll go back to heaven.
Yeah, I'll end all this right now. I'll go back to heaven. Everything will go back to normal. I've told you how I feel. Now I just need you to say it. And then Jesse was like, wait a second. Hold on. Like, I know what's going on here. And then he twigged, didn't he? And he's like, you need me to tell you. And then he's like,
And they started chucking him around the place, didn't he? He was like throwing him all over the place. And then he says, and he just goes, you are released or go home, or I can't remember what he said.
Yeah.
And I thought it could have been related to God going to heaven, and then all of a sudden this thing came out of him and Genesis was freed.
Yep, and it flew off, and that was the end of that. And then God...
And he just walked away from God, and then God got back in his van.
No. We've got to give this a proper conclusion. So he let Genesis go, and then he was like, I don't need it to beat you. And God's on the floor, and God's really like starting to get annoyed. His eyes change color. He started getting, like, I am the Lord Almighty kind of thing. And then he's like, I could smite you down, because Jesse punched him as well. That was the other thing. He punched him in the face. And he's like, I will smite you. I could destroy you. And he's like, yeah, but you won't, because it's still not going to get me to say I love you, which is what you want. And he's like, you're nothing but a needy, whiny little bitch. He's like, you're just a narcissistic, self-obsessed person, and that's what you want. He's like, that's what it's all about. So basically, the long and the short of it, in this, within the storytelling of Preacher, that has just framed that, just in case anybody, of a religious disposition seems to think that we're talking about God as in the real God in the show. So basically, he's basically saying, like, you didn't do all of this because you had the urge to create and that you're a benevolent creator. The reason that God in Preacher is such a dick is because the only reason he ever made anything was because he was lonely and he just wanted things to worship him and love him.
Yeah.
And the minute they didn't, the minute that people started turning away from God and, this, that, and the other, that was when he got pissed off, because he's like, I need all this adulation. I need people to love me. I need people to tell me, tell me I'm pretty, tell me I'm special, that kind of thing. It's like, he was a needy person, a needy being.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's insane that he didn't do this. He didn't create everything. I suppose that's also the interesting thing with him and Jesus, because Jesus is, partially human. That's why Jesus is like, oh, it's all about love and it's all about, peace and kindness. And God's like, no, it's not. It's not. None of that is about any of that. All of it is a load of rubbish. All of this religion stuff is a load of rubbish. All that matters is people love me and worship me. That's what matters. Yeah. And it's like, wow, that's really interesting how they portrayed him in that way. They framed him in that way. That's the reason why he's been the way he's been all the way through this. He's been cowardly and cruel and, an arsehole, basically, because that's how his perspective. It's like, because didn't he say that as well? He said, like, when I was alone, when there was no, that was afterwards. He said that bit. But the speech he gave about being on his own and when there was nothing and being a lonely creator. And it's like, you just did this for your own self. It wasn't, like when you hear people when they're like, oh, I'm a carpenter, so I just have the desire to make things. I have to, I have to design a chair or a table because it's in my nature. That's what I do. An artist has to draw. A painter has to paint because it's in their DNA. He wasn't like creating life because he's a creator. You know, it's like, I have to make life because I am God. It was, I have to make life because I'm bored and I'm lonely and I want people to tell me how much they love me.
Yeah, indeed.
That's when then, because Jesse was like, you're nothing, he then was like going, you can do whatever the hell you want. He was like, stay out of heaven. Don't go back to heaven. He told him quite pointedly, don't go back to heaven. And he's like, but, you know, if you want to stay down here and do whatever the hell it is you're doing down here, fair enough, be my guest. But I'm not having any part of it. I'm going to see a movie.
Yep.
And he walked off and left God. And God was just left there on the ground, like, just all humbled and like, what the hell? And then he went back in the trailer and then...
Wow. Well, we'd obviously seen all these cages, hadn't we? But we didn't know what was in any of these cages.
Mm.
And they were all, everything, whatever it was all they were going, love you, I love you, I love you so much, and all this stuff. And he just stood in this trailer with all this noise.
Yeah.
It's like, this is new creation he's obviously created, which we saw him doing.
I mean, we never.
So I like the way it was an open ending. Respect.
We never really got to see what they were, did we?
No.
Although there were.
Well, obviously, he was obviously working on his next plan based on, with the world going to end, this was going to be the new start, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Probably. And now he was just left with these things that weren't finished, just saying, I love you, and he hasn't ended the will, so he can't use them.
But whatever the hell,
he's even lonelier in a way.
Yeah, whatever the hell they were like tentacly and stuff, because there was one, obviously he got annoyed, he was going, shut up, and he went to one of the cages and he reached his hand in and killed whatever was inside it. And as he was doing it, you could see these kind of like tentacly things flailing around and stuff like that.
Yeah, so, it's like, oh, what did he have planned?
Yeah, it's like, what the hell was in there? I don't know. But yes, and then it goes to heaven. And you get to see God's big room and all the angels are dead. And then God walks in and he's like, what have you done? You've slaughtered all of my angels. And you're like, who's he talking to? And who was he talking to?
The saint. He was there because he confessed to Jess. So he killed him and saved him, which meant he got to be freed from what he was doing, and he'd been sent to heaven.
Yep, deathbed confessional.
And he'd gone there to get God, basically, hadn't he?
Yeah.
And he wanted to have a gunfight.
He was like, he's there. And then God again tried to pull the trick he did on Jesse. He basically was like, William, my son, my boy, my child, you don't know what it's like, this, that, and the other. And he's like, I can give you everything. I can give you what you want. I can give you back your family. I can give you paradise and all of this kind of stuff. And he's like, all you have to do is choose love. Choose love, William. And it was weird because, again, you could tell he's trying to do what he did with Jesse and stuff. He's manipulating him. He's probably got no intention of doing anything for him. He's trying to just weasel his way out of this. And his hands were crackling with like energy, like he was going to smite him at any moment. And
any point,
he stood there thinking, and he's like holding his daughter's doll in his hand. And he dropped it to the floor, didn't he?
Yeah.
And God's going, choose love. And he's like, I choose hate. And God's like, no. And he like, bang. And then you get this like moment where the saint fires his gun, God fires his lightning, and then it all goes black and there's flashes like almost like strobe effects. And then you see God with a bullet hole in his head, falls to the ground, and the saint just smoke off his gun back into the holster. And then he just walks on over to the throne of heaven. And then what is a very cool image, he sits down in God's throne, and it's kind of like, right, so he's God now then.
So he did still want to kill God in the end.
He did. It was just really clever. What I loved is the fact that he was Jesse's last insurance policy. He was Jesse's last insurance policy against God that they set up several years back. During that moment, he got through to the saint and obviously realized that, the saint realized that, you'll never get to do what you wanted to kill God. If you help God and you get pardoned and you get your divine thing, then you won't be a killer anymore. You won't be able to be a killer. The only way is to do it this other way. And it was like, that thing of like, then obviously he confessed all his sins. Jesse absolved him. Jesse killed him and then sent him to heaven. So he could then be there laying in wait for the time. Because he was like, because didn't he say that to God as well? He said, the preacher knew that you'd come back here eventually.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So it's like, it was always laid out. He always had that plan in mind. One day God will go back to heaven. And when he does, the saint will be waiting for him. So then that explains as well why Jesse didn't destroy him himself.
Yeah, because he knew what was coming to him.
Yeah. So I don't need to.
He had a plan, so he didn't care. No. And then we saw a little snippet of how the others had moved on. We had Jesus in a paint shop. With a guy with paint that he was returning, which he then told him, if you don't like it, bring it back in 30 days. And I thought, he's just returning it anyway.
Yeah.
And a little girl with him had a Eugene t-shirt on.
And that's what I was saying about we had a little thing to do with Eugene. He had a
He'd also become a rock star.
Because on the back it said World Tour on the back of it as well. So yeah.
He made it.
Yeah. The dream he had of being a famous rock star, he got his wish. So good for you.
And then we also saw Klaus playing golf. The cops turned up.
Yeah. I mean, that whole bit, he had a weird little entourage, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then, like you said, and it was that copper, the one that we saw previously, the black guy that had worked with Hoover 2.
Yeah.
And he's like, we've been trying to track you down for the last couple of years. And that bit was hard. They had a struggle. He fell over, and then they had him on the ground, and then he was jerking off, basically. They're like, oh, what's he doing? Is he jerking up? But they was like, he wasn't actually. In the struggle, he'd swiped the police officer's gun.
Yeah.
And he turned around and killed them both. And then they just left him in the bunker.
They chucked him in the bunker, didn't they?
And he carried on playing golf.
It was like,
carried
on playing golf as if nothing happened.
I love the fact that it ended with that really cheesy moment of him grinning and like he sort of flicked his hair and then it panned out and he was like leaning on his golf club. And Zoe said he looked very much like somebody like Farrah Fawcett or something. Like, the way he looked, like with the glamorous flick of the hair, like she said, with his long sort of 70s style hair and everything like that. And I was like, yeah, I can see that actually. But yeah, that was weird. It was like he basically got a happy ending. Like he didn't get any.
He went on and had his beautiful hair, doing what he wanted to do, and he was yeah. And
he never had to pay for all the things he did. But then
all the things he did.
It's like Zoe said, she said, yeah, but that's like such as in life. All these people that cause these things, like the bankers that cause all these crises and things like that. And, politicians that cause all this upheaval, they eventually, they retire, they go off, they have a great life. They're never held to task for what they did wrong. So she said
they will be eventually.
Yeah. But, that's why there was no resolution of his story. He never got his comeuppance because that's kind of accurate in a way.
Yeah. Dictators and stuff like that, people like that get away with everything. Like I say, eventually he'd get his comeuppance.
Then we had another time jump.
40 years later. And we had Jesse and Tulip's grave.
But it was confusing for a second because Tulip was also there in the cemetery.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, there's we didn't have that was the thing. We saw Jesse's grave quite clearly, and then we saw the grave next to it, but we didn't get as much of a zoom in on that grave, but you could kind of make out the writing.
It was Tulip,
wait, but she's there. She's there, stood there, looking at the graves. And then Cassidy was there, and
that's sad.
Turns out he never did come back, did he?
No.
So all that time, when they were like, oh, he'll be back soon, and he never came back.
No, and we could hear some children in the background, which obviously hit with the daughter's children.
Yes, because that was then, obviously, became apparent, because didn't he say to her, your mum? And then you're like, well, that's the little girl. She's all grown up. That's Jessie and Tulip's daughter. That's why. So what they had done here, for those at home that don't watch it and stuff, they had cast, like, Ruth Negga, who played Tulip, was also playing their daughter as well. So that's why I said it was confused. It was like, but Tulip stood there at the graveyard, but it wasn't Tulip, it was their daughter.
It was nice in a way. It's sad, but it was nice to think that they did finally have their happy ending.
Yeah.
And they had their child that they wanted, and obviously she's got kids, so they had grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd had their life that they wanted. And I think that's why Cassidy was looking, thinking they did finally, get what they wanted.
And then what he was told
she said
by
about
her.
Yeah.
And like Dad always like talked about you and like how you were like his best friend and stuff. And then Mum, she really loved you,
Yeah.
And it was really sad. And he was like,
because he's still there, isn't he? He'll never not be there.
Yeah.
He had his chance, didn't he? He had his chance to go back and to be dead, basically, to be free, and he didn't take it. And now they'd obviously lived their lives, had a daughter, grandchildren.
Yeah.
And he's still there on his own, roaming the earth.
And then
when she said to him, "Oh, will you come back and visit or something again?
Will we see you again?" Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'd like to think so. I hope so. And then he walked off, and then we were, because like Zoe was going, wait, it's the daylight. And I was like, yeah, but he's got his umbrella there. He'll put that up in a minute. It's probably because they were in the shade of the trees. But he didn't put his umbrella up. He hung his umbrella on a gravestone, and then he walked out into the sunlight.
I could see him burning up.
Yeah. So he'd obviously decided.
I think that's killed him.
Because he said, didn't he say, when she asked him, she was like, where are you going to go next? You've been to here, you've been to there, you've been to all over the place. Where are you going next? And he was like, I think I'll try somewhere new. And obviously somewhere new was obviously the afterlife, was like, it's time for a new adventure.
He'd had enough. He had enough for him in the earth.
Yeah.
And now he'd lost his best friends. There was no point.
Mm-hmm. And that was the end of that.
That was quite sweet. Yeah, and that was it.
And that was the end of Preacher.
Yeah.
So it was kind of it was a bittersweet ending. I mean, they resolved pretty much everything, which was good. They didn't really leave much hanging in the air. Like I said, the only thing that was a bit was that we never really got a resolution as to like, okay, so the Saint of Killers is now in charge of heaven, but what happened about hell? And the other thing was also Genesis was like, what was the point of Genesis, like, at all? Because ultimately there was no point, because Jesse just let it go and it just flew up into the sky and just flew away.
Yeah.
It never did anything. Like, you know, this whole series was predicated on this being that is an abomination in the eyes of God, that has power that rivals God, that comes down from heaven and goes into this normal human preacher. And that, like, there was no bigger agenda. There was no anything. It was just like, that's it. You know, the thing was in it. And then eventually, and then what was interesting as well was the fact that Jesse could have got rid of it at any time, because it was Jesse that told it to leave.
Yeah. But it's weird because obviously he changed his ways a lot when he got Genesis. In a way, he was becoming a different person, wasn't he? But then obviously, you know, he did release it. But before he even released it, they were running for the mob. They were still doing the stuff they did before.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, Genesis has left him, now he's gone back to his old ways. It did make, exactly. I don't know. It was a bit confusing.
Because, like, okay, so here's my pitch, right? So this is when me and Zoe were talking about afterwards, and I said, I liked this episode. I thought it was a good episode. It was well paced.
Yes.
I liked the fact that we got all the things with all the different characters. Everybody played a part. What I didn't like, so I would give it a good, like say, a good solid sort of 7.5 out of 10. It didn't make me feel angry in the way that the ending of Lost did, or the ending of Game of Thrones did, or anything. I didn't feel like I've wasted all my time watching this show.
You haven't been cheated, yeah.
So it was a good ending. It was an ending, but it wasn't quite what I would have liked. Like, I would have liked. So this is my version of the ending. Okay. So my version of the ending is pretty much everything else happens in the episode the way it happened, except God does destroy the world, right? So God eventually, when Jesse goes to the Alamo and has that showdown with God, God does lose his temper, and God decides, do you know what? I'm going to show you just how powerful I am. I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
You won't give me what I want. You've caused me all these problems. So do you know what? Screw it. Because that's how he's been portrayed in the show. He's a spoiled child that throws his toys out the pram. So therefore, it would make sense for him to go, do you know what then? Screw it. I'm done with it. And then just boom, blows up the earth. And then because Jesse's got Genesis in him, it means that he's able to survive. And you've got this shot of like God and Jesse like kind of floating up in space, just looking at the destruction, you know, the just parts of the earth floating around and stuff.
Yeah.
And God's just kind of taunting him and just being like, well, you know, basically this is your fault, and all you had to do was say this, that, and the other. And he's like, so now it's just you and me, kid, for eternity, you know, that kind of thing. And then the same thing happens where God goes back to heaven. So he leaves Jesse behind, and Jesse's there all on his own with nobody, no friends, no earth, no nothing. A lifetime of nothingness with only God for company. And God goes back to heaven, gets killed by the Saint, because Jesse knew this. Jesse knew that there was a plan. And then because Jesse then has the power that rivals God's power, he waits until God's out of the way, and then he remakes everything. And he remakes the earth, and he brings everybody back, and he makes everything right. Then he releases Genesis. And then you go, Genesis served its purpose. The purpose all along was basically to make Jesse like God, so that he could be the one to thwart this plan of God's, but also be there after the plan had gone through to turn everything back to normal. Do you know what I mean? It'd be like God thinks...
Sort of undo his plan at the same time.
God thinks he succeeded. God thinks he won in the end because he's like, do you know what? In the end, I just blew it all up. But Jesse was there, and that was the purpose of Genesis, was to then be like, that was the point all along. The reason he went into this man of God, this preacher, was because Jesse would have had that in his mind of like, I'm going to bring everybody back. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to make everything right again. And then it would have been all right again. The saints in heaven, everybody's back on earth. The rest of the story still carries on the way it is. He then releases Genesis. And I mean, we saw in the very first episode, Genesis had a weird face, like a baby's face on it. You could have even had that moment where Jesse releases it and the two look at each other and the baby just kind of goes, like gurgles. And then it just flies off into space. And then you go, there we go. That's the end of that. You know, that's the end of that situation. And I don't know. I just would have added that in because then it would have made Genesis serve a purpose. Because really, apart from the few times where Jesse used the voice to control people, other than that, Genesis never really served a purpose in the whole 4 seasons.
No.
Do you know what I think? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you like my version?
Yeah, something more spectacular should have ended. That part of it should have been a bit more spectacular.
Yeah.
Like I say, the rest of it carried on. Years later, they did this, that, the other. But the actual showdown, the proper showdown, should have been a bit more spectacular.
Yeah.
They missed the boat. They missed the boat on that one, on that particular bit. But, oh well. Too late now, it's done.
Yeah, but that's what I feel that kind of let it down, was that it just needed something.
So you've got the extra 3 points if you'd done that bit, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly. It just felt a little
Josh
bit...
Rogan.
Yeah, Josh Rogan. Seth Rogan, even.
Oh, Seth Rogan.
Josh Rogan. Yeah, Seth Rogan, if you're listening. Waves fist at his microphone. Kevin Smith would have blown the world up.
Oh, yeah. Kevin Smith would have saved everything. Saved the whole thing. Good old Kev.
But, you know, I just, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I just felt there was just something a little bit lacking. There was something missing.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I do as
Zoe
well.
said the same as well.
I couldn't really pinpoint what I thought, but I just thought I've expected it to have not the ending. The ending was nice because obviously, like I say, they got what they wanted and they actually did have a good life at the end. But so when it got to, it was building up, and that bit, when he finally got everyone to find him, it was just like, why did you do that bit then? Why did you do that bit then? It's like, what a waste of that moment. Could have been more spectacular, couldn't it?
Yeah.
But, oh well.
But there we go.
Have to start being writers, Dom.
Yes, definitely.
If you need a script written, come to us.
Yes, you know who to call. The Geek Team. Da, 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 da. Oh dear. Well, let us know your thoughts in the comments about everything we've talked about today, but also, like, if you watch Preacher, or even if you read the comics or whatever, you know, what are your thoughts on the way that they ended the show? As we said, we're not let down by the ending. We're not saying, oh, it sucks, don't ever watch this program. Yes, watch the program. It's a great show. It's so funny, it's clever, great performances. Just, we personally would have wanted something more, but maybe you watched it. But
we do anyway. We always have higher expectations of everything we watch, though, don't we?
Because you might have watched it at home and you might be going, I love the ending. I thought it was amazing. And if you did, that's fantastic. You know, but just let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are, and you might get a mention on next week's show, and we'll talk about your comment and stuff like that.
And now we've finished with both Fear the Walking Dead and Preacher. Next week, it's going to be exciting.
Next week, we get the return of all the comic book shows.
Yes, lots of them.
Yes, lots of them. Yes, indeed.
And Walking Dead as well.
And yes, and Walking Dead returns. So we're going to have a little bit of horror with Walking Dead and American Horror Story, and a lot of superheroic action with all the Arrowverse shows. So it should be a good blend of things. So tune in for that one, folks. And that will do us. Usual things, as I said at the beginning. Obviously, I've mentioned the comment section already. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. And if you enjoyed this, if you came across us by accident and you were like, well, do you know what? This was really good. Or if you've listened to us before, but you haven't made that commitment yet, please do. Please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Help grow this Geek-Dom into a bigger and bigger thing. And also hit that thumbs up button. Leave a like. Let us know that you enjoy what we did today and what we do in general. That would be, you know, very much appreciated by both of us. check out the description box for the link to my Twitter, so you can come and follow me on there. And also my donation mediums are in there too, so if you should feel generous enough to give a little something to help support the future of the podcast, the future of the channel, the growth of the channel towards new equipment and this, that and the other, you've got 2 options in which to do so. You're not under any obligation to do it, but if you did, I would be hugely grateful, and yeah, it would be really appreciated. And you'll also find the link for the thing that I mentioned earlier on in the beginning section. If you're in the market for a game for PC, VR or Switch, there's a link there to take you to Green Man Gaming. Yes, it says it's for ukulele, but you can go wandering around the website from that link. Just use that link and I'll get a little something on top, and it won't cost you any extra. So you'll be helping me out without even really helping me out. So it's a win-win for everybody. And we will chat to you guys again next week. So thank you very much, Mother, for joining me. Been a pleasure.
You're very welcome.
It's always enjoyable. We always have fun. So
oh, yes. Yes, indeed.
We will reconvene next week for another thrilling, exciting installment of Talking TV with my mum. So you all take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye, 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 bye.